OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
All right, you're very welcome along. Tuesday morning, I want to say, here on OTB AM. If I'm wrong, you can let me know in the comments. youtube.com/offtheball. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want to leave a comment. You can also get us on the old WhatsApp. 0879 180 180 is the number for that one. Or, of course, you can get us on Twitter, @offtheball.am. Every time I read the number for the WhatsApp, I'm reminded of the story, whether or not it's true, that one time Jimmy White was in Lilies, and the Irish football team were in there, and they're very excited about the fact that, like, celebrity Jimmy White was there.
Oh, yeah.
And so McAteer shouts 180 at him.
Oh, he tried.
I don't know if it's true. I assume it's not true, Jason. But still, the story is too good not to repeat.
Yeah. He made an effort, to be fair.
Good morning, Shane.
Good morning, how are things?
Good morning, Kathleen.
Good morning.
Shane, you're slightly hungover this morning.
I was at the Always Sunny podcast, I think, with half of Dublin last night in 3 Arena.
Literally every single Instagram story I looked at last night was people at the Always Sunny podcast. One of my friends actually FaceTimed his girlfriend in from Canada for it, for a section of it, and I was like, that's dedication to the cause.
It was
Are you allowed to do that? Is there not like a...
Probably not. It was like a 30-second, like, look where we are sort of thing. It wasn't.
Yeah. It was one of those weird ones because...
No copyright.
Yeah, exactly. Myself and the brother were right over against one of the walls for our seats. We paid good money for these seats, and most of the show was you had to see the big screen to see the clips they were putting up and stuff. You
can't see the big screen from the seat?
No, we were like, literally, this is ridiculous. So, like, within 10 minutes, we just moved over and got ourselves a nice central
because it wasn't
full. There was like a few empty seats.
All right.
Not many empty seats, but we made the most of our opportunity.
Kind of like people not turning up for one reason or another, sort of empty seats.
Exactly. Yeah, handful. But it was really good fun. Kristen Olsen shows up, the wife of Rob McElhenney, who's fantastic in the show. People who are fans of Always Sunny will know her. They were kind of hinting at it the whole time. They're like, oh, I wonder what time it is over in Los Angeles, where she is tonight. And then, of course, she lands out in the second half of the show. It's very good, though. Very good.
The bit broken, of course, by the fact that they do the same joke in
London.
England. Yeah.
Now, they kept getting brownie points from the Irish crowd by shouting at how much they hate England. They would just randomly stand up and say, England was shit compared to this. And then everyone would go buck for about 5 minutes. And
we're easily
easy
pleased.
wins.
I was going to say, we're such a simple crowd.
Yeah. And they referenced the imperialism of England and why they hated England. And I was like, you guys didn't say this when you were in London, did you?
They say it? Oh, no.
I doubt it.
It's funny, yeah.
But
they did pick
it.
Wales for the football team, obviously, as opposed to England, which
True,
is relatively interesting.
Was there much Wrexham chat?
There was absolutely none. There was kind of half a hint at, oh, look at Rob owning a football team, and it literally lasted 2 seconds. But it was a lot of fun. Charlie Day is hilarious.
It's Charlie Day, Rob McElhenney,
Glenn Howerton, who plays Dennis on the show, and Kirsten Olsen, and then Megan is the writer on the show who kind of runs the podcast, is almost the MC, I guess, the person in between.
So they all do the podcast?
Yeah,
right.
Except for Kirsten Olsen. Yeah, it's Megan and then the 3 lads do the podcast.
It's a fairly all-star cast to be travelling around doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of shows, I suppose, where podcasting has actually gone in recent years.
And how much money you make from selling out the 3 Arena. How much was it?
I think tickets were 45, maybe 50 quid. And it looked to be a sellout. I think they have another night sold out tonight in the 3 Arena. I'm not sure if they have a third night this week, but certainly a second night tonight. But when you see the crowd for podcasts, it's quite insane. I know Blind Boy does Vicar Street quite often, so yeah, it turns out podcasts are pretty popular. Who would have known?
Was it good?
It was good. It was very, very good entertainment. Funny, I met one of my mates afterwards, and I was like, that was brilliant, wasn't it? He was like, I thought it was crap, but I wasn't drinking. He wasn't drinking, and I was like, I don't think the drinking made it more fun for me. I think it was fun regardless. But my brother was the same. He was like, yeah, that was very, very solid entertainment.
Was your mate a fan of the podcast?
He was, yeah.
Oh, right.
A fan of the show. There's a lot of people there who are like fans of the show. Some were fans of the show and the podcast.
Right.
People were literally, as clips were coming up on screen, people were quoting it out loud. You could hear the entire auditorium kind of quoting things back. So
it is one of those proper cult kind of shows. Like I'd never watched it before, and then during lockdown lived with 2 people who absolutely loved it. So it was like every night you were just watching like 3 or 4 episodes. You almost go into like a bit of a daze because some of the episodes as well are like relatively trippy or something.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're watching multiple of them in a row.
They're only like 20 minutes long, so like you can go down dark hole watching.
There are a gazillion of them as well. That's the other thing. It's been going for such a long period of time. So yeah, okay, that was one thing that happened last night. Obviously, Liverpool are back, right? There's no way that we're going to be lulled into a false sense of security by Liverpool putting up an incredible performance, absolutely walloping their opponents, and they're definitely not going to let us down the next game they play, are they? This has not happened at all this season.
How do you judge where Liverpool are at? How do you judge where Liverpool are at?
Next season, I think you judge where Liverpool are at. This season is a bit of a write-off. I mean, is it beyond the possibility that they could still go on? What
top 4 surely is out of the question at this stage.
Do they want European football next year, or do they not want European football?
Of course they do. Now, the likes of the Jude Bellingham decision, if you want to call it a decision, the club saying they're not interested in him, you feel like that's preempting the fact that they're not going to get Champions League football for next season. But then you see a result like last night and you're like, if they can get results like this between now and the end of the season,
it's too late.
Do you think it's too late?
It's too late.
Yeah, well, the points difference between themselves and Manchester United, for example, is quite significant.
United aren't their targets. Newcastle have to be their targets, right? So Newcastle have 56 points and Liverpool have 47 points. So can they make up 9 points in 8 games?
Well, I mean, they can for sure, but it would take a bit of a Newcastle.
That's a lot of points in 8 games.
Yeah, it's significant enough. And then you just can't trust Liverpool to continue this. And also
no, you can't.
The Trent Alexander-Arnold handball,
which is like the most obvious handball. I was watching with the sound down, going, "Oh well, they're obviously going to take this back." And then Gakpo's still celebrating, and it's like they've kicked off. Why are you kicked off? Where's the VAR?
Yeah,
what's going on?
And I was chatting to Phil about this outside. It's like if Trent himself had lashed it in from there, the goal would not have stood. It's because the play goes on, and he's not the direct person involved in the goal. Apparently, the rules are so flaky and grey.
But why did the referee just not stop it and go, "Oh, that was a handball"?
Yeah, well, this is the thing now. They let the play go on, don't they, just to see what's going to happen.
But then you've got
to. It's a bit ridiculous. Now, of course, it's 6-1 in the end, so probably takes away from the controversy a little bit. But it was a significant goal at a significant time.
If flaky Leeds get flaked and feel like the world is against them because the world is against them, that I think it has a material impact.
Well, you almost feel like Leeds are screwed now as well. Sinisterra gets the goal and you're thinking, well, this is a chance. They could come back. They're at home. There's a bit of momentum behind them. I know you love that word, Ger. But Liverpool just pushed on. And if you're looking at the Premier League table now at the moment and you're a Leeds fan this morning, plenty of you in Ireland, by the way, as well, you're concerned. 2 points clear of the relegation spots.
I feel like they've been concerned for a lot longer than just last night, though, as well.
They were born concerned. But yeah, it's Southampton on the bottom 23, Leicester on 25, Forest on 27, and then you have just Everton above them on goal difference, and Leeds 2 points clear of that.
I don't feel like they're doomed after last night at all. I feel like, you get hammered in one of these games, everybody goes off and has a few days off, and then you come back in and you go again. I'm sure the Leeds fans feel pretty grim about life, but so do the Everton fans, so do the Forest fans, and it's actually interesting. Liverpool have Forest next.
Yeah, I mean, perfect game for Liverpool.
It is a perfect game for Liverpool. It's at Anfield, but then they're away at West Ham, and they've Spurs at home, then they've Fulham at home, and they've Brentford at home. So they've a lot of home games in a row, and maybe you give them
tough opposition though. Fulham, Brentford, they're the exact type of teams that travel away places and just pick up results.
Not at Anfield. Not at Anfield.
Maybe not.
I think so. Look, maybe this is it. Maybe the Liverpool fans are feeling themselves this morning, and we're raining their parade. Maybe top 4 is still on. This would be the most remarkable achievement of his entire career.
Which is
not toppling Bayern Munich, not winning the European Cup, not winning the league for the first time. This getting 4th from here. Imagine the glory at the end of the season.
Which do you think is more likely right now, guys? Arsenal winning the title or Liverpool getting top 4? The Arsenal fan in the corner, keeping things real.
I'd be leaning towards neither of them being all that I think Arsenal winning the title is more likely than Liverpool getting top 4 at the moment. Just purely on the fact that Arsenal at least have a bit of a cushion at the top of the table, whereas Liverpool do have a lot of points to make up to get that top. And I also think there are other teams above them as well who are possibly better positioned to make up the points and get a couple of results.
Yeah.
And go on that run.
So sorry, you said Arsenal are more likely than Liverpool.
Yeah.
Which is correct according to the bookmakers. Bookies have it 6-1, 13-2 for Liverpool to make top 4, and Arsenal are still 7-4 to win the league.
Yes. Favourites.
No, 9-4 favourites. 9-4 on favourites, Manchester City.
That's mad, isn't it?
No, it's not bad.
It's been such an upsetting couple of days for Arsenal supporters.
It makes perfect sense.
West Ham at the weekend, losing Kim Little yesterday ahead of like the Champions League at the weekend and a possible title run, and Caitlin Fjord also out for the rest. Well, at least a month. Already losing Miedema.
It's not great, is it?
I literally, like, I actually, and I've said this a couple of times that I've been on the show, I have enjoyed the high points of this season because I knew at some stage it was all going to come crashing down around my ears. And I did. It was one of the Premier, and it's not over yet, but this has probably been one of the most enjoyable Premier League seasons that I've had in a long time. And I'm going to remember that, and I'm going to remember how happy I was.
You'll be so sad, though, if it doesn't work out.
I always had this feeling that we weren't going to do it. Like, I as much as I enjoyed it, I just always thought that City at some stage were going to come back. Like, I looked at our squad depth, like the just general ability of a player like Haaland to get goals no matter what, and I was like, I don't really think this is going to happen for us. I don't think we could last the whole season, but it's a good... I think you guys were kind of right when you were saying the other day that Arsenal would almost be better if they were still in at least one other competition. I think they're feeling the weight of just being in the Premier League race and having nothing else to focus on. And if we don't win this, well, we've just blown an absolutely massive lead for our own... It's not even like we came up against teams that were very good and blew it against them. It's we came up against teams and faltered when we should be firing on.
Like Rio Ferdinand was putting up on Twitter yesterday a couple of clips from his podcast, and he was talking about the fact that would you prefer to be an Arsenal player, finish second in the league and not win a trophy, or
with all due respect, this is the man who was like, oh, we don't celebrate the Carabao Cup, and now it's a great thing. Think how the turntables have turned. Rio, you're celebrating the Carabao Cup as like, oh, we're better than you.
But third in the Carabao Cup is better.
It's not
than second, and no.
It isn't because at the start of the season. Because at the start of the season, you're at Manchester United, but you're expected to win actual trophies as opposed to the Mickey Mouse Carabao Cup.
Or Mickey Mouse Carabao Cup. So if Aston Villa won the Carabao Cup, you'd be like,
are Aston Villa and Manchester United expectations the same, Shane?
No.
With respect, this is Rio Ferdinand who would have branded the Carabao Cup Mickey Mouse. We didn't celebrate that. The cup stayed in the corner. We had bigger fish to fry. We were Champions League contenders. We were Premier League contenders. It's all well and good for him, like trying to stoke the flames of, you're still only Arsenal and you managed to bottle the league. But it's absolute nonsense from his perspective to be saying that Arsenal haven't had a better season than Manchester United this year. They haven't. If Arsenal finished second.
I would prefer to have had Manchester United's season. Because
no, you wouldn't
based on
have.
United's current expectations the last 10 years are give us any trophy possible. Forget about the Premier League and the Champions League. Like, Carabao Cup is where it's at. Like, this season, if they go on and win...
That has not been United's expectations for the last 10 years.
Well, if United could win another trophy this season, if the FA Cup and Europa League as well.
But that's not what he said. He said if they just won the Carabao Cup. So if they just win the Carabao Cup, they have to either get beaten by Brighton or Manchester City in the FA Cup. Right?
Yeah.
That has to be part of the season. You're going to be like, yes, what a great season. Knocked out by Brighton or our nearest rivals in the final.
And
Hooray.
get top 4 in the league.
We won the Carabao Cup. But what? Yeah, we're happy with that.
No,
what?
but
What are you talking about?
Champions League qualification and a trophy at the end of the season. That's
Arsenal
not bad.
Genuine title contenders for the vast majority of the season. From nowhere. From like, will they get top 4? Unlikely.
Yeah, but
to a bit where they're now suddenly genuine title contenders and potentially genuine title contenders next season. We'll wait and see.
Like, if you genuinely went to the depths that Arsenal have gone to over the last recent couple of seasons, and if United were in that place, because they were never in the place that Arsenal have been, like they haven't been rebuilding in the same way that Arsenal have been since Arteta came in, and you had a season where you went to second, led the whole league for the majority of the year, and were pipped by a pretty insane Man City team when you look at like the squad, the fact that they probably have about 2 players in most positions that they could swap in and out, and no, it doesn't make that much of a difference. You go up against that and you get second, and okay, yes, it is an explosion. You would say that what United have done this season is more impressive than that. Like, Arsenal have come from nowhere, literally, over the last couple of seasons. United never sunk to those sort of depths.
No, but like, I feel like a trophy, like, when you look back when a player looks back in their career, trophies are what matters. It's not second place finish.
But proper trophies matter as well, like not the Carabao Cup.
Of course, if we rank trophies, the Carabao Cup comes at the bottom of those trophies. It's not as big as the Champions League, the Premier League, or the FA Cup.
Would you rather be Arsenal or Manchester United heading into next season on the basis of this season's performances?
Well, league terms, of course, Arsenal. But I mean,
so who had a better season?
Manchester United are not far off.
Well, we'll see.
The gulf isn't that big, and Newcastle aren't that far off as well. Like a big summer for Newcastle.
I just thought it was a bit rich from Rio to be like, oh, we've definitely had a better season because we won this thing which we don't respect, which we don't respect.
Of course, he's not going to respect it because he's won everything. But these current United players hadn't won a trophy at Old Trafford.
Tell me the last trophies that they won when Mourinho had that season where they won trophies.
When Mourinho won the Europa League and the League Cup,
and that was a real stepping stone to contending for a title, wasn't it? That was real. We're on it now. We're on the upward trajectory. The football we're playing is great.
Finished second in the league as well.
Finished second in the league.
Yeah, exactly. But do we remember that? No, we don't remember that.
Were they in the race?
In the league. We remember the trophies and the images of Wembley.
How close was the race? Was it a title race, or was it just we managed to come from fourth to finish second? That's what happened. They weren't in the title race. There was no. But
the point is, no one remembers those second place. You're not going to look back in your career and say, remember
we absolutely remember.
Our fans aren't going to remember it. Oh, look, remember that time we finished second to Man City? And I
think the Liverpool fans remember pushing Man City to the end of the season. Everybody remembers title races. Everybody remembers Arsenal and Liverpool and Michael Thomas and there being an actual title race. People, of course.
But fans don't think back on it fondly because it's like, wasn't that great that we had a title race? No. We lost the title race. It was crap.
People don't remember.
I've literally just told you this has been one of the most enjoyable seasons that I've had in over a decade because we were up there and you actually saw and kind of in the same way you're saying with this United team. You can see the positive trends. You can see that Ten Hag has come in and actually finally given you something to fight for. That's exactly what I'm saying about Arsenal season. The only difference is we actually had potential to win the league.
True. I just
United
think
didn't.
You need to get your medals and your trophies out. At the end of your career, fans will remember that. United fans will remember the Carabao Cup final this year for a few years. That was a happy memory. They could still win the Europa League if they get over Sevilla on Thursday night.
If they don't win the Europa League, it's a bit of a bottle job.
But
they're by far the most storied, most successful club left in the competition.
Yeah.
In terms of titles won, money, turnover, fan base.
But what's the advantage of winning the Europa League? Getting Champions League qualification. So if they get top four anyway in the Premier League, does it really matter winning the Europa League or not?
But at the same time,
it's a trophy, of course.
No. I'm saying that if they only win one trophy from this position, where they're in the semi-final of the FA Cup and they're still 2-0 up at home to Sevilla. Have you seen the Goldberg clip?
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, it's
never fails to deliver.
Doing the rounds where it's Sevilla, no sign of them scoring. They've been completely blunt. And then
Goldbridge is he's that just character that leans into it, I think. But no.
Anyway, I mean, look, that's your tribe there. 7:48 this morning, and they're all coming out to defend you as well. Don't worry.
Go on, lads. Keep her lit in the comments.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Got the ultimate shaver, your money back, Neon Night edition available now. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock for you on OTB AM. James Tracy's going to rejoin us, talking to us about Leinster. He's going to pick a Leinster second team that we would stick up against Munster, Ulster or Connacht. Frank Greaney's going to update us on, maybe for the final time, on the Regency trial, although maybe not, because the Minister for Justice says that the investigation into the Regency murder is still ongoing. One JD, please. That's John Duggan at 8:40. Sports News at 8:45. After that, Harriet Prior is going to talk to us about Liverpool. Alex Denning is one of our brightest young drivers. He's going to talk to us at 9:10, and we'll play out some Lydia Hislop from last night's show. So she's obviously talking about the protest at the Grand National. Protest at the Snooker last night. You managed to miss this, Shane.
I should say, people are reminding me it's Caitlin Olsen. I don't know what I said, but...
Said Kristen, I think it was.
Okay, Kristen Olsen. It's Caitlin Olsen, of course it is. Protest at the Snooker. I was on the way to the 3 Arena last night when I saw my phone starting to hop. All my snooker friends, #snooker friends, messaged me going, have you seen this? I was like, oh my God. I've never in all my days watching the World Snooker Championship.
Almost, for anyone who's listening and can't see it, but for anyone that's watching on YouTube, it almost looks like performance art, the photos that are up there.
Well, Ronnie O'Sullivan's good mates with Damien Hirst, the artist who is often in the crowd at the Crucible. This was not a Damien Hirst moment. This was Just Stop Oil, who have got the publicity that I think they were looking for. These are the guys who were blocking the motorways and roads of England, protesting and trying to raise awareness for environmental concerns. And they've got their back page headlines. They've got their push notifications yesterday. It was just one of those mad moments where you're like, this is really disruptive, because you could run onto a pitch at a football match, or you could even run onto a track at an athletics meet, and things just continue once the protesters are, I guess, taken away. But in snooker, if you open a bag of orange powder on a snooker table, it turns out the baize does not react too kindly to it. You had Rob Walker out hoovering, trying to hoover it up. They had to recloth it overnight, apparently, and that match between Joe Perry and Robert Milkins is to resume at 7 p.m. this evening. So
there would have been play this morning.
Yeah, and so the session last night had just begun. It was in the opening frame, 11 points to 0, I think, and so they had to stop the session, stop this morning session, of course, and resume 24 hours later. So it's a bit annoying for the fans who had to sit there and pay the money for the tickets front row. Security probably are looking at themselves this morning going, maybe we could have done a bit more there. On the other table, of course, Mark Allen was in action, and the referee Olivia Martil, who I've spoken to on Off the Ball before, over COVID, he was the guy who literally stops the female protester from coming onto the other table, and I think she was trying to glue herself to the table. She managed to get one hand into one of the middle pockets and get no further. But it was just one of those mad moments where, like, this is not going to be forgotten for some time. Snooker is in the mainstream, folks, so I'm not complaining. We're all talking about snooker this morning. Maybe not the action, but still.
I think because as well it's so quiet in snooker, it made more of an impact than, say, if you see someone running onto a pitch at a football match and there's like 50, 60,000 people. You just hear this yelling, and then all of a sudden there's a guy on the table and the paint or whatever it was going everywhere. It kind of like, it made you jump. Like I just saw I think I actually saw the video you tweeted out, and that was how I first saw it. And even though I was expecting something, it still like gave me a bit of a fright whenever your man came out.
Some people are saying it's a great advertisement for Baraka.
Do we know what it was?
I don't know what it was.
It said that it was dried paint in the papers today.
But it made quite a mess. It's just one of those little crazy moments. It's funny because when you're at the Crucible, and I'm heading over this weekend, you are searched quite vigorously going in, so I don't know how they managed to pull this off, but it was just one of those things where, like, is this actually happening? I've seen them trying to recloth tables overnight and move tables. It's a process. It's a tedious process.
I do have to wonder why. Surely there's a table next door that they have, ready to go just in case something might happen. A contingency plan, maybe, in the event that something. Are there only 2 tables at the Crucible?
There's a 2-table setup, and then the semi-finals on. So overnight between the quarters and semis, they turn it into a 1-table setup. Right in the middle of the room. It's quite tight with the 2 tables. But you see, the tables are so heavy and have to be put together and reclothed. And
but why does that have to be reclothed every time?
Well, you see, the players notice if a cloth is hard or fast, or if it's bouncing too much, or if it's rolling off a little bit.
Rolling off sounds bad. Yeah,
definitely, certainly bad.
It's not the pub.
No, but
is it not kind of like, though, I don't know if you're playing at Wimbledon or something, and you just kind of accept over the course of a tournament that the surface is going to change, and you're supposed to adapt your game to deal with that?
But if all of the players start complaining about the conditions, then that's when
same for all of them, Shane. Same for all of them,
It's true, yeah. And some players used to use a certain type of chalk. I think Ronnie O'Sullivan used to get in trouble for using a certain type of chalk that left marks on the table, and other players who used a cleaner chalk weren't happy with it, and it would certainly affect the conditions. So snooker is one of those sports where it's like, if there's even a draft in the room, people notice, the players notice. Obviously, if there's a fly, it's like the episode of Breaking Bad, everyone just stops and waits until the fly is arrested.
Killed.
This is why I'm saying it's shocking that a man comes screaming out of the crowd from nowhere, because if you're disturbed by a breeze or a fly.
Well, it's the supporters. You can hear the fans on the TV as well cursing, and literally you're just waiting for the fans nearly to run on and take this
I
guy
genuinely
away.
thought that was going to happen with some of the stuff that the fans were shouting. I almost think they have such reverence for the tables and like that space of where the people are competing that they're almost kind of like rocking in and out of their seat, being like, I want to go down there, but I'm also not going to go down there.
The table's paradise. The table is literally, you can't touch a snooker. Like, I remember interviewing Ken Doherty at the World Snooker Championship a few years ago for a documentary for Off the Ball, and we stood beside the table, but fans were coming into their seats, and we were literally, and he was like, you can touch it if you want, and I was like, no, I'm not touching it. I absolutely don't want to touch that. Like, literally, it's so clean and pristine looking. I'm like, I don't want to even.
What about all the oil on the people's fingers, like over the course of the tournament? Exactly. And sorry, in the middle of the tournament, maybe you've already said this. I was just reading some of the comments. Do they change it ever? Or do they ever
They do recloth it. Yeah.
In the middle of the tournament.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. At times.
Why aren't they quicker than this? Why is it taking 24 hours? It seems like they're just being a little bit dramatic about the whole. Someone poured some stuff on our thing. It's ruined.
I actually think it's any publicity is good. It's good for the Just Stop Oil protesters. They've got the headlines, but it's also good for World Snooker. I think they're looking at this going, it's caused a bit of a delay, but I mean, everyone's talking about
as you say, Snooker on the front and back pages.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
They were thinking it was going to be the Ronnie O'Sullivan versus his opponent on Friday.
Hossein Vafai. This is going to be juicy. They have been slagging each other off for, like, Hossein Vafai was interviewed yesterday and he was like, he beat Ding Junhui 10-6 and he said, yeah, Ronnie used to be my hero, not anymore.
He's one of the numpties that Ronnie looked down on.
Yes, yeah. 100%.
Ronnie, a bit of a bully punching down.
True, yeah. Ronnie has a mug that says numpties on it that he was given and still uses quite often. But yeah, Ronnie. I think Ronnie needs a little bit of spice and juice to.
That's what he says. Yeah,
that's what he says.
I mean, I'm so unenthusiastic about this thing that I'm great at that I need someone to enthuse me.
Yeah, he's got a book coming out as well. So watch this space.
Yeah, Damien Hirst did. There was one of those documentaries. Damien Hirst has gifted him a painting, which I presume is worth as much as he's won in his entire career.
Ridiculous.
So, yeah. Right. A couple of things we need to talk. Todd Boehly was in, by the way. Todd Boehly was in, chatting to the players, giving them.
You made it sound like Todd Boehly just popped in to say hello to us.
Studio here, yeah.
A few of his thoughts. I wonder, was it inspired by the fact that he was getting crap from the Chelsea fans? So yesterday we saw pictures of Todd Boehly looking up at Chelsea fans and speaking to them looking down on his box and giving him a piece of their mind. And then today we hear that he went in with a couple of the other co-owners and spoke to the players for an hour afterwards.
Apparently this is a thing. Apparently Todd Boehly just does this, and it's like, this is not something new, but
I think the length of time seems to be new.
Yeah.
And also the fact apparently he picked out one particular senior player that's been signed over the last year and gave them a really hard time, and they were one of the few people that were picked on throughout the whole thing.
Okay. Do we know who it was?
No, none of the papers will say who it actually was.
It's farcical. What does Todd Boehly know about football? Sorry, Todd Boehly's come up with some ideas that you're like,
hey man, he's the owner. He's the owner.
He's the owner, but that does not give him a right to go into the dressing room.
He knows his name is on the bottom of the checks. Knows a lot.
Leave it to the managers who have lived and breathed football.
Yeah, Frank Lampard's doing a great job.
No, but
he's doing a great job.
Frank Lampard knows a lot more about football than Todd Boehly does. So stay out of the dressing room. What do you have to say? Go in and say your few words for like a minute or two. No problem.
As my kids would say, debatable. But anyway, Dwayne Griffin says, as an Arsenal fan, I'm happy with the progress Arsenal have made in the position they're in, genuinely contending for the title and pushing a great City team. Not too bothered what United are doing. Dahlia Shocknessy, Arsenal pushing this incredible City with a devastating Haaland when they weren't even forecast top four at the start, and Man U FC fans moaning that it's a failure. United fans extremely bitter Arsenal are pushing City this year. It's that bad that they would rather see their nearest rival City win the league over Arsenal. Stephen Nolan, Arsenal have bottled the league so badly. Shane Corcoran, don't be so ridiculous, Ger. If they don't win the title, it's not a successful season. United have one trophy in the bag and still in contention for 2 more trophies. Yeah, Shane, that's right. And if they bottle those trophies, is it a great season?
What do you mean bottle?
Well, that was Rio's. In Rio's assertion, it was like they've already bottled them.
Lose to an Evan Ferguson inspired Brighton.
Well, he's going to be injured.
Hopefully he's back. It'd be lovely to see him.
Better season, win FA Cup, League Cup and Europa Conference League and finish 5th or finish 4th and win nothing. I'd pick the former. So West Ham are going to have a better season than Arsenal. Is that what you're telling me? If they win the Europa Conference League? All right, Fergus. I'll have whatever you're smoking this morning. Ger, you have to look at the time frame. You have to take time frame into consideration, says Chris, when talking about trophies. Rio winning the Carabao Cup is completely different to this United team winning the Cup. It's all relevant, he says. You mean relative, I think, Chris. Not to be pedantic, but I accept your point. But Rio can't have it both ways, is what I'm saying. And Shane trying to, this is a great season. We spent $250 million on players in the summer. And
Villa fans still sing about the European Cup in the 80s. Like,
it's a European Cup.
Yeah, I know, but
it's an actual
it's a
European
trophy,
Cup.
exactly.
It's not the Carabao Cup. It's the European Cup. You get a gold star. That's what you get the stars for, Shane.
The League Cup is not a bad trophy. It's the worst trophy available.
It was literally the thing that drove Alex Ferguson to dementia. Demented, not dementia. Anyway.
I just think
That thought's gone.
We got
to go. 7:59 OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Got the ultimate shaver. Your money back Neon Night edition is available now. Coming up after the break, James Tracy, who's created an alternate Leinster 15 to take on the rest of the provinces. During the break, you're going to hear a clip from the latest Rugby Daily. Don't miss all the action in Rugby Daily today in your OTB podcast feed. Just search Rugby Daily. Bring you everything you need to know about rugby. It's all in partnership with Deliveroo. Deliveroo has some great bundles and deals. So open the app, make your choice, and watch your rider come to you. Deliveroo, food, we get it.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Off the Ball will be hosting a live UEFA Champions League roadshow in partnership with Just Eat. And it's coming your way on May 3rd, live from the Mansion House in Dublin.
We'll be joined by some great guests, including UEFA Champions League winner John O'Shea. Our guests will share memorable stories and reminisce about their careers.
We'll also look ahead to the latter stages of the competition.
This is an exclusive off-air event and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events and we'll see you on the night.
Just Eat, the official food delivery partner of the UEFA Champions League.
First up, Connacht today confirmed the impending arrival of Scott Fardy as their new defence coach, signing a 2-year contract at the sports ground. The former Leinster and Wallabies forward joins a coaching staff that has come to also include John Muldoon in recent weeks. They'll report to head coach Pete Wilkins, who says Fardy understands what it takes to develop a relentless and winning mindset. Since retiring as a player in 2021, Fardy has held coaching positions in Japan with the NEC Green Rockets and subsequently Australian club Warringah. England head coach Simon Middleton has admitted that his side are likely to hand a heavy defeat to Ireland in Saturday's TikTok Women's Six Nations meeting at Musgrave Park. They followed comfortable wins over both Scotland and Italy with a 59 points to 3 hammering of Wales in Cardiff on Saturday. By contrast, Ireland are facing the prospect of the wooden spoon after their 24-7 loss to Italy at the weekend. In last year's corresponding fixture, England ran in 11 tries in a 69 points to 0 hammering of Ireland at Welford Road. This time around, they're set to welcome more than 40,000 fans to Twickenham. Asked about the prospect of another one-sided affair, Middleton responded, "The potential is there, isn't it? I'm not going to say that it's not. But we won't compromise how we play because that wouldn't be respectful to our opposition." Middleton empathised with Ireland's recent struggles but warned, "We will be as prepared and as ruthless as we can be. I can guarantee you that Ireland will have to deal with us."
Fighting Words, Ukrainian Action in Ireland and the Irish Red Cross have come together to host an exciting concert by some of the best loved artists from both Ireland and Ukraine at Vicar Street on Monday 24th of April. Come show your support with more than 20 great Irish and Ukrainian artists including Glenn Hansard and Colin McInumrah, Kathy Davey, Roddy Doyle and Paul Muldoon, all taking part in support of the millions who have been forced to flee Ukraine. A concert for Ukraine at Vicar Street Monday 24th of April. Tickets on sale from Ticketmaster at just €25 or go to vicarstreet.com.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's 2 minutes past 8. James Tracy is with us. James, good morning to you. How are you?
Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back. Leinster have been pretty good since you were last here.
Yeah, not too bad. Not
unbelievable, the bits and pieces that they've managed to do with in all different circumstances. The first team against Ulster, first day out, okay, it was like first game back. Second day out, absolutely sensational. And then the team in South Africa, with the game dead, it looked like totally gone from them. They're like, no, hang on a second. We're Leinster. We're going to win this game. It was remarkable.
Yeah, I think a few of the lads, well, probably the majority of the lads would have been on that trip last year. And if you don't remember, the Sharks game came down to the final play as well. And it was. I was just injured. That was probably the week before the injury that finished me off. But been part of the week and the prep that went in. It was such a young team, and it was probably the proudest I've been after like a loss. But we were just like, I've never been so close to winning a game. We were picking and going. With inches to go, and that sort of pain, you don't forget that. And I think you learn more from your losses sometimes than you do from wins. And I think that sort of lesson would have been carried into, okay, we've been in this position before. South Africa away, it's very, very tough place to be. Let's just stick to the process. And, so like Chris Cosgrove's 50-22, like you're talking clutch. That wins them the game, you know. But there was loads of little moments along the way that would have helped. But you know, when the clock's nearly done, and you know it was a long kick, they were within their own half.
A lot of people won't have seen this. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It goes inside the 5 metre line.
Yeah, and it's travelling still. You know, it was one of the best 50-22s I've seen. But it purely because of the context and the execution of the skill. But you know, you still got to get over the line from there. And I thought the composure from quite a young team there of just getting the job done and wearing the defence down and eking out a penalty. Nicely, it was under the post, thank God.
Yeah.
Just makes it a bit easier for everyone, but I feel like they would have scored, you know, if they'd gone on a few more phases anyway, which is a great sign of the character of the team.
I think maybe 10 years ago, when a second string team would be out, and it would be so clearly a second string team, we never really had this expectation that these players were going to then be expected to step up to Ireland level. But at the moment, the way players are stepping up and the way Hugo Keenan stepped up and the way Jimmy O'Brien has stepped up, you're kind of thinking any one of these players could actually end up, not any one of them, but like if you're the best player on that team at the moment and you're putting in those performances, then you're not a million miles away from Ireland selection, because the strength and depth at Leinster is so great that if you're actually getting ahead of the player ahead of you, you're playing at international level.
Yeah, and there's a beauty in that, and it's a disaster at the same time, because it's so competitive at club level, and you know you could be playing pretty well and you don't get picked, and you know you might be the second best person in the country in your own opinion, but you're nowhere near the Ireland squad because they can't see you play. So that's the downside, and the upside is when you're on the field, you're surrounded by guys that are humming at the minute. A lot of guys like Ringrose is an absolute flying form. He's even poaching balls the other day against Leicester. But I thought like a player that stood out for me who probably hasn't got the Ireland plaudits was Max Duggan in that game. He had a few huge moments. If you remember Chris Cosgrove's yellow card. So he's in an offside position. He goes to intercept the ball anyway. He knocks it on. It was a fair enough yellow card, but the ball goes past him, and the Lions would have scored in the corner. I think Max corner flags from about 4 people on the other side of the ruck. He runs past about 4 of his teammates to hit the ball out of the Lions player's hand as he goes to put it down, and then they end up defending the sequence and exiting, so they don't score.
Yeah.
They're down a man, but they don't score. That's a huge moment in the game, and those are the little things that make their best players in the world, as well as obviously being exceptional at your role. But it's those little no talent moments that will propel him on when he gets his chance, and I'm delighted to see him doing that for the group and being a leader at such a young age.
What's that like in Leinster training, where there's an obvious tier, order of preference? You might have world-class players ahead of you in your position. Like, is there a case where in training you're like, there's teachers' pets and favourites, or is it very much not really the case, and that's not something that you feel in training necessarily? I
think there's always teachers' pets, but at the same time, like, take your pick of pets at the minute. It's just a great group, and I feel very privileged to have been in the building with so many of them, and it's just a great era at the minute. But of course, I think like we'd all be lying if we didn't say in any group of people you always kind of have your favourites, but they're favourites for a reason. They're exceptional professionals, and they show up on the weekend time after time. It's some experience for those young players as well, getting the tour of South Africa and just feel that vibe of going off and having an actual couple of weeks where you have a couple of big teams. Like these South African teams are serious opposition for those young players as well. Yeah, I think it's been a great addition to now the URC. Whoever was behind getting the South African teams, it's been a huge success. And I know from my own experience of going over there, like it's a really, really hard place to win, and that's fairly cliche, but it's a different style. of rugby over there. You know, it's so attritional. They're so combative, and they have these absolute freaks of like backs and forwards. Their skills, like you saw some of the tries. It's unbelievable. You know, but it just comes natural to them. It's quite French in how the flair that they have in a way. But they go from this, you know, beating the hell out of you, and then all of a sudden, you know, they get a glimmer of a gap, and then they're gone and they're back. They have these guys who are just like sprinters.
Why is the national team? Why does the national team play such boring rugby then? When they have all this incredible, it feels almost like they're repressing that part of their character when they get to. Maybe it's only the World Cup and the Lions, and this time around they produce all singing, all dancing rugby. Unfortunately,
it was pretty effective for them.
It is, but you feel like there must be some way. Like this French team, for example, has given Dupont and Entimac free reign to do what they want to do, while at the same time they have the big beast of the forwards and the giant centres, and they've managed to get that mix of, it seems, flair and power. And with South Africa, I've yet to see the flair. Like they'll have one winger who they will go, okay, you can do this. Everybody else, crash ball. You know, I'm obviously slightly.
Yeah, I was about to say, the back three are pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you got to understand as well that that's their chosen style, and they've won the World Cup with that style.
Yeah.
So it's hard to give up on a system that's been so effective for them, and. How do you stop? Like, you know, you can know what they're going to do, and it's so hard to stop because they just have these superhumans, and then they have the Colbys of the world, and Pimpy, and like, they just wear you down. They play the percentages. They kick the ball really, really effectively, and they play the percentages, and it's worked for them. And it mightn't be the most pleasing game to watch sometimes, but it's so effective. But yeah, I would 10 times out of 10 prefer to watch a French team play than most of the South African games, just because, like as you said, it's a lot of kicking, very attritional. You know, it's not the most pleasing to the eye, but my God, is it effective?
Yeah, and then you see bits like that at the weekend, and you're like, hang on a second, there's definitely something here that it didn't look like stereotypical South African rugby at all. So with that in mind, when you heard the news that Stuart Lancaster's replacement was going to be Jacques Nienaber, what did you make? What was your... Had you heard any gossip about this?
No, I hadn't. So we alluded to the last time, each team has like a phase of like where it's good to have someone come in. I think it's from the outside looking in anyway now, it's probably a really good addition in terms of... My guess would be he'd fit into the defence side of things because he seems to be world class at that. So Andrew Goodman would probably step into doing the full attack, and then you kind of have like a specialist in each of the areas, which I think can only be a good thing, you know. And I have to give testament to Leo and where he's taken this team from, you know, when he I don't want to say inherited it, but we were not at a good place for a long time, and I think people forget that because we've been dominant for a long time, but the progression and always putting the team first, and been humble enough to pick some world class coaches at certain things, and the effect that's had on you know, the school system, the clubs, and how they're playing, which is leading into how the kind of conveyor belt that people are talking about that we have at the minute. I think Stuart Lancaster was a huge part of that, and he's going to want to leave his legacy this year of getting a win and another star.
I mean, I talk about this a bit, but I do think that, like, you can't underestimate the lack of ego that Leo Cullen has in bringing people in who are genuinely world class, because he knows that if Leinster's defence next season is incredible and they win a European Cup off the back of it, Leo's not going to get the credit for that in a way that, like, he could be putting himself forward. And, well, you know, he's the exact opposite of a Jose Mourinho figure, and it's far more successful over a long term.
Yeah, and it's his strengths. He's created a role now where he plays to his strengths, and he enables whoever he brings in to be the best at what they're very good at. And I think that's the environment, like, anyone would want to work in. It's like, what are you good at? You do that. And, you know, we'll find, someone else will do what they're exceptional at, and you know, we'll all go on this journey together. And his man management and everything like that. Listen, I'm singing his praises here. We've all had tough conversations as players with Leo, but when you take your personal side out of it, you realise it's all for the bigger picture. It's about the team, and he's been really successful so far at plugging the right people in and picking the right foreign players, as well as the young talent, and giving them opportunities, as well as getting the right coaches in.
I do want to just ask you about Prendergast before we move on. He's very good.
He's very good. Yeah, good Newbridge College man as well.
Very exciting.
Yeah, no, he is. He's really shown a lot of promise, and I think he's young, so we can't get too carried away in terms of like putting the hype train behind him just yet.
Yeah,
I know he wanted. And listen, it's warranted. He's showed up. Every time he's got an opportunity, he's been class. For either whether it be the 20s or
nice handy away trip to South Africa for your first whole start. No problem.
Yeah, no, he's an exceptional talent, and he needs to be nurtured. It's you don't want to get thrown too far in the deep end and root a player. He's got a long, very good career ahead of him. What looks like he's starting off in an unbelievable spot. He seems to have all the attributes. He's tall, which can be. He's a big man. He's a lot to fill out.
Yeah.
So that's also a good thing. Not that you want your 10 to be a crash ball merchant, but again, it's just another. It might be useful. It might not be, but it's probably better to be told than it is not.
Was the expectation in Newbridge College that he would come through and reach this potential? Was the talk about him?
Yeah,
this for years? Was it coming?
Yeah, he would have been earmarked as an exceptional talent. Yeah, I think it's pretty. He was the same player in school than he is now.
Right.
He's just he's a baller, and he's a good
that jinky
head and shoulders
for a 10.
Yeah,
we haven't had one of those really for a long time.
Yeah, well, listen, our out halves haven't been too bad now.
No, but I absolutely, our out halves are obviously world class, generational talents. But it's kind of a Tony Ward thing that he has that. So our 10s, I think, and I don't know enough about the rivalry in the 70s and 80s, but Tony Ward had that kind of I'm going to Leo Messi you, whereas the rest of them are genius kickers and seeing space and putting players through with their hands.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing now we have another option in terms of a bit of variety on how we play the game. But we've got loads of good ball players out there, like Harry Byrne. Don't forget about how talented he is as well. We were quick to forget when Ross and Frawley as well. There's another. He's a little bit different to the other two. It's just what makes the I talked about kind of pairings in the front row and kind of balance. What makes either the Leinster or Ireland team? What's the right fit? And now we have, it seems like, loads of options, and hopefully there'll be a few more young guys coming up in the other provinces too that are going to shine.
You picked an alternate 15 for us for Leinster just to show the strength and depth at the moment, and this is for an imaginary fixture against the first team of one of the other provinces. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, but also it's the team that trains against the Leinster first 15 as well, and I think that's probably an advantage that doesn't get talked about enough that we have, where our training quality is so good, because we have guys who've come up through the ranks and are now at international grade, if you want to say.
How much contact is happening in those training sessions?
Not we manage very well.
Right.
Yeah. If you think you're trying to peak at the weekend, and there's loads, I have friends who moved on to different clubs, and there's different ways of doing it, but traditionally a Tuesday we'd have a little bit of a hit out. That'd be our kind of heavy day, but apart from that there wouldn't be much contact whatsoever, and there's reasons for it. You're talking injuries, but also it's the longevity. It's a long season. There's a lot of big games, and you're just getting over it. And
how long is that intense Tuesday session? Is it short? Is it
short and sharp? The contact part. We're only doing. You might never do full on, but you're doing units and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the whole session. I don't want to get it wrong, but it's probably 70 minutes, 60, 70 minutes. It's not long.
Yeah.
But some provinces do 2 hours. Some teams do 2 hours, sorry, not provinces, but that's a different way to do it. Like, there's loads of different ways of training, but we've always kind of been short and sharp. Now, I say I'm not 100% if it is. Charlie Higgins would probably have my head for calling it out, but I've no idea. But it's definitely not long.
Okay.
It's short and intense.
Okay. Let's look at the alternate 15. So your front row is Healy, Kelleher, Alalatoa. Your second row is Baird and Jenkins.
Yeah.
And then your back row is Ruddock, Connors and Deegan. And Scott Penny's looking at this going, what do I have to do?
Yeah, and like, again, I was kind of him and hawing of who do you pick there? But I think Connors has been injured for a while, and he's a very good player. But like, Penny's got an unbelievably bright future ahead of him. All he needs is a bit of a break.
Yeah.
I think he's improved. He's an unbelievable man for a try. It's just some people like can sniff them out. He seems to be one of them. But he's again another like really big talent. But I think Connors, like, if you remember, he burst onto the scene for Ireland, and he's just had a string
game against Italy or close enough to
a
it.
string of really, really bad injuries, and I think he complements that back row really well. Ruddock and Max would be really good line-out options. You have kind of like a big lock in Jenkins. Baird, we've seen how dynamic and everything he is. Love the balance of that front row. And then
very experienced in Healy and Alalatoa.
Yeah.
Is there much depth coming up behind them in terms of props?
Yeah. Like, well, like Ed Byrne, you know, is an exceptional. He'd be a starter week in, week out if he was in a different team or province. He's been very unlucky. Yvak Abeladze, who scored the other day.
Very dynamic off the base.
But also a very good scrummager. He's from Georgia, which is, I don't know, a blanket statement on the wall, but like typically very good scrummagers, and they are. There's big men and love scrummaging. He's really gotten very good on his technical side of things recently as well. You've Tom Clarkson coming up in a tight end prop as well. Mikey Milne at loose head. Like, there's a few guys who are putting their hand up there.
Obviously, Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne are your 9 and 10. This is assuming that Sexton is in the first team. If Ross Byrne is in the first team, who is the depth chart? I presume is Harry Byrne at the moment. Is Ross and Harry really, or is it Frawley?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that. So I think it would depend on who's in better form at the time and who you're playing against.
Right.
But yeah, you would probably say it's Harry than Frawls. But like, you could put Frawls in 12. You could play both of them together. Like, that's the thing with Frawley. He could play in multiple positions. Very, very talented guy. But yeah, you'd probably have the two Burns. I'd have Frawley probably next in at 12. But also, it's kind of like a and or other for, for 10. But you'd probably have Harry in there.
Having Frawley in the squad, like, he might be ahead of Harry in terms of the match day 23
because he can play multiple positions.
Yeah.
Like, you can play him full back, you can play him 12.
It's just good and bad at certain stages in your career, because at some point you want to be like, no, I'm first choice here.
Yeah, it is, and I've been lucky that I've never had that, because you're either like hooker, unless you're Dan Sheehan, you probably play in the wing and other places, but the hooker, you just kind of nail into one. But Jimmy O'Brien, he kind of falls into that category, and it's been good for him. It got him into squads because he can play anywhere, but also he can play anywhere at a very high standard.
Yeah,
that's also important. It's kind of been exceptional when you do get in there, and I think he's flying at wing, and that's probably, I didn't see that one coming. I saw it, like, he could play 10, he could play 12, play 13, 15, and I wouldn't have had him as a wing, but he's been exceptional at wing.
Like, really sensational since the Six Nations as well, where you're kind of thinking, okay, he's been on the fringe of a team, he's been in a squad, he's just been on the verge of being in the squad, but then I wasn't quite sure if Larmour was ahead of him or not, but the Leinster selectors are obviously, no, you are ahead, and off you go, and he completely justified his selection the last day. Yes,
and I think, again, that's game time. We're talking about the bitter side of having such competition. When you're in the window and you're playing, especially for Ireland, you're automatically kind of ahead when it comes back. He showed himself as a winger for Ireland. Jimmy has. So, why wouldn't they give you the opportunity when you're flying? He's in flying form.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such an asset as well, having a left footer on the field. And I think that's an important reason. I was kind of hemming and hawing whether to put Osborne in with Natai, but I thought it was a better balance having O'Brien there.
So you've got him at 13 in your team.
I've got him at 13, yeah. So I probably would have preferred him at full back maybe, but I feel like it's probably a better centre partnership, the two of them, in terms of their attributes and the balance of kind of what they're good at and where they could attack the best.
You've got Kearney at 11, it's Tom O'Brien at 14 and Larmer at 15.
Yeah. So, I think Tommy O'Brien, he's had a long injury run, but I think he's another one that probably hasn't gotten an opportunity. He is, sky's the limit for him. You know, he comes up with big moments. I remember that he won tackle of the year last year with a try-saving tackle in the corner in the RDS, and he just comes up with big moments and loves it. He had a huge poach against the Lions. I'm not sure if you remember, but like, it would have been they had a big attack. Made a line break through a bit of poor defence. He comes up with a poach that again was kind of like a turning point in the game. And you talk about like momentum swings in that Leicester game. There was when Kathleen got the yellow card. There was a 7-man scrum. Leinster had a 7-man scrum. It was about 50 minutes, and
it's kind of the ball game.
It's the ball game, yeah, that's it. And you're thinking, okay, so you have a decision to make as Leinster. You're like, do we put 8 on and we're screwed? We're either open for 50-22, we're going to probably concede 50 metres if they attack, but we won't concede a scrum penalty, or we back our 7 to maybe hold it out. And you know, we're strong in the back line, and they went for that. But I'm not sure I remember many scrum penalties against a scrum as good as Leicester where you have 7 versus 8 and you win the penalty. I think it's a real sign of the maturity and the confidence of this group. And like I remember I was talking about, you know, what do I miss about it? Those sorts of moments of like your back's against the wall, huge scrum. You understand like when you're in that, the context of if they get a penalty here, it's 17-10. We're defending versus we're kicking for goal and it's 20 points to 10, and all of a sudden the game is swung massively in our favour.
Am I right in thinking that's the one that Furlong comes up and has he's totally purple?
yeah. I think they were all giving it the big one. But as you said, like those moments, they're some of my favourite. Scrum penalties and turnover penalties. You can't. If you could bottle that up and sell it.
How does that team that you've picked fare against the Irish provinces? The Irish provinces at full strength.
I think it would be very competitive. I genuinely think it would have a very good chance of winning the URC.
It's ridiculously strong.
Yeah,
when you look at it, like
and I'd like to, you know, you'd nearly like to see it in a test environment to see how it would get on. The only reason I say that is, you know, the guts of that team will have played a lot of the provinces and would have played a lot of the other teams and beaten them. So I think like it's not my opinion. It's kind of like it's been proven as well that they would be very competitive at the URC level. But again, it's hearsay. You know, we'll never get to see it unfold properly. But it's a very strong position for them to be in.
Do you feel like the gap between Leinster and the rest is narrowing, or is it getting bigger?
I hard to comment on. You know, it's intangible really, but I think like if you look at Munster, they're in like a rebuild phase at the minute. They have a few really exciting young guys coming through the ranks. I think Connacht, you see Scott Fardy signing for him. I think that's a great coup. Muldoon as well coming
What's
back.
Fardy like?
He's a legend, really good pal of mine. He's exceptional around maul, line out, detail of all that sort of combative side of things. He's the experience of being a World Cup finalist. He was one of the like leaders in Leinster for that year and like following years. He just understands having your back against the wall, going into kind of cauldrons, how to deal with those scenarios. I think it'd be brilliant for a lot of the younger and experienced guys in Connacht, because like a lot of the time they go in as underdogs, and I feel like that is he'll relish in that and understanding how to motivate those guys and giving them little tricks of the trade. Yeah,
you were concerned a little bit about what the post Andy Friend life was going to be like for Connacht, but they've put together a really good coaching ticket, and it feels like they've, you know, global influence, local understanding. Muldoon going away and coming back, I think that's always very powerful. Like, you go away to a high performing environment and you come back and you bring what you've learned, but you also fully understand exactly where you're from.
Yeah, 100%, and I think we've had that with Andrew Goodman. He's gone and worked in some incredible environments. Crusaders, and you look at like Shawnee, who's gone away as well. So from my personal experience, I think that's been amazing. I've learned from different things, and then you look at like the likes of Raj, and where he's gone, and he's learned so much, and hopefully at some point he'll be back in Ireland coaching, maybe in the long term. It doesn't look like it'll be in the short term.
No, not at the moment, because things are going too well. Very quickly, and it's impossible to do justice to lose in 2 minutes here, but for all of Leinster's brilliance at the weekend, Toulouse were just as good, if not better. So this is not in any way a gimme, and yet everybody's already talking about the final in Dublin, and I'm just always a little bit concerned when that happens, where it's like, this is DuPont.
Yeah.
This is like, there are very few people in world sport as dominant and brilliant as DuPont is, and so beware.
Yeah, and he's like been nominated as World Player of the Year and won World Player of the Year, and like for good reason. Like he is almost unplayable when he's in top form. But if you look at just the moments he has, like some of my favourite training weeks have been preparing to play against him, because it's almost like herding sheep. Everyone's just constantly on guard. You're trying to stay connected, but it's mentally one of the most exhausting games you'll play, because you always, when the ball goes over there, normally if you're in the middle of the field, you're thinking, okay, just get back in the line, guy left and right of me, okay, now what do I see in front of me, let's come forward and attack. But with teams like French teams, especially with DuPont teams, you're also thinking, okay, but it's probably going to be an offload back inside, and then he's going to sidestep two people, and then all of a sudden there's a line break over there. So you're just always like corner flagging there at the same time, then they can attack you back over here. And if you watch the French, how they play, they'll almost, you could throw a blanket over them. And their forwards will be like bashing up, and then within a split second they're fanned out wide, and you have like some amazing talent and flair, but at the same time within the close there's little offloads, and there's the intricacies of how they do it. Also, they have an exceptional maul, and I think that's another area where Leinster need to be wary, is they're really good at building the back corner of the maul. So if you're watching, you'll see they'll be very strategic about putting like their tight head prop and one of the big guy on the kind of open side of the maul at the back, and they're very good at kind of either pivoting around him or building the maul through him and getting it forward. And I think that's something we'll need to be able to stop, as well as the flair and staying alert for DuPont, Entomac, Ramos.
We'll come back to the full preview of that, but certainly it's time for us to begin the build-up and start getting excited about it, because it is like two of the most exciting teams in the world playing against each other in hopefully a full house.
Yeah, and I think one of the most exciting fixtures this year on the international stage was the French-Irish game.
Oh yeah.
Let's hope we have like a repeat of that, where you've just a big slugfest of like two really good teams that want to play really exciting rugby.
Yeah, absolutely sensational. Like when you think about it, it was the two best teams in the world playing against each other, and the hype actually didn't do justice to what the fixture was, and so we've got another 10 days or so building up to this one, so fingers crossed. James, great stuff, great to have you back, thanks a million. We're going to talk to Frank Greaney in just a moment about the Regency Hotel trial. First though, in the break, Pat and Evan chatting to Joe about whether Arsenal are looking over their shoulders at Man City.
They would have to be really, really stupid, really dim to not see Manchester City's big shadow on their shoulder.
Well, to what extent do you think City's form is adding to their nerves?
And it can't help. It's the old one. You hate running at the front, because if there's somebody on your shoulder, it's always a wee bit. It's not always, but it's often a bit easier if it's a tight race to be right on the shoulder coming off that last bend, because you can see everything. Whereas you're at the front and you've been at the front for a long time, you've got a million thoughts in your head and they're all behind you. So it's absolutely the case. It's a tough place to be, and everyone's gunning for you. You know that, but and especially if you're not used to it. If you're not used to it, and it's the classic one which we've said before. Man City know they can win it. Arsenal think they can. And that's the difference. It's Arsenal where they are. They still think they can, whereas Man City, absolutely just about every player in that team knows they can. I mean, just about the only player, maybe one or two, but Haaland doesn't know. But I suspect he's hell of a confident he can.
Wouldn't think he's quivering somehow.
Right, more of that goodness on the OTB football feed from the football show. Search OTB football wherever you get your podcast. Now, Frank Greaney is with us this morning to talk to us about the fallout from yesterday on the front page of all of the newspapers today. The news that Gerry Hutch was found not guilty by the Special Criminal Court of involvement in the murder at the Regency Hotel. Frank, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Ger. I'm good, thanks.
It feels like, certainly in the commentary today, that people felt like this decision was coming, and yet at the same time, when it was announced, there was still sharp intakes of breath in the court.
Yeah, I suppose having covered all 52 days of the trial, having heard all of the evidence presented by Jonathan Dowdall and others through what was, a lengthy and complex trial, I felt that Gerry Hutch was unlikely to be convicted. I felt that the decision of the Special Criminal Court yesterday was the correct decision. I would have been very surprised if he was convicted on the back of the evidence, because to convict Gerry Hutch, the judges would have had to believe the evidence of Jonathan Dowdall, a self-confessed liar with a very serious criminal past, a man who was already serving a sentence, having admitted to being an accomplice in relation to what happened at the Regency Hotel back in February 2016. Now, the court could have, there is precedent where, the court can believe the words of somebody like Jonathan Dowdall, but in the end, they chose not to, at least not in isolation. They were not satisfied with the evidence presented by Jonathan Dowdall. And this, of course, relates to his claim that Gerry Hutch confessed his involvement, his direct involvement. Jonathan Dowdall told the trial just before Christmas that he met Gerry Hutch in a park in Whitehall just a few days after the Regency Hotel shooting, and he claimed that Gerry Hutch had confessed to him that he was one of two gunmen who shot David Byrne in the hotel a few days beforehand. This was flatly denied by Gerry Hutch, who said the meeting never took place. He denied any involvement in what happened at the Regency Hotel. And that was the specific allegation made by the prosecution, the specific case pursued by the prosecution. So when the judges didn't believe the testimony of Jonathan Dowdall, what they did next was they looked for independent evidence to corroborate, potentially support what he was saying. They were pointed to 10 hours of a secretly recorded conversation between Jonathan Dowdall and Gerry Hutch as they made their way to Northern Ireland to meet some Republican contacts of Jonathan Dowdall just a few weeks after the shooting. Unbeknownst to them, An Garda Síochána had bugged Jonathan Dowdall's Toyota Land Cruiser. All 10 hours of that conversation were played in court, and the prosecution pointed to a number of things that Gerry Hutch said during the course of that conversation that they claimed supported what Jonathan Dowdall was saying. But after giving it some very careful consideration, having listened to those hours and hours of secretly recorded audio, the judges were not satisfied that there was anything to corroborate what Jonathan Dowdall said to them just before Christmas. And in the end, as we all know by now, they decided to acquit Gerry Hutch of murder yesterday.
Was there a criticism, either implicit or explicit, in the judge's decision about the charge that was taken? Because it seemed to be there was some suggestion that that specific allegation by Jonathan Dowdall of the alleged confession that Gerry Hutch made to him in the park seemed to change the course of the investigation away from if they had accused Gerry Hutch of something else, they might have been more likely to have had a successful outcome.
I don't think it's correct or fair to say that the judge was critical of the way the trial was run by the Director of Public Prosecutions on behalf of the people of Ireland, because I suppose that's not their role. Their role as judges of the Special Criminal Court was to assess the facts of the case and to ultimately deliver judgment, in this case in relation to Gerry Hutch and the two others who were convicted of less serious offences. But she did mention a few things that suggested, I suppose, their thought process. And I thought it was very interesting when they eventually turned their attention to the ruling in relation to Gerry Hutch. And this wasn't until after lunch, until after the two co-accused were dealt with in the morning. And she started off by pointing out what the prosecution's case was against Gerry Hutch, and also, and maybe more importantly, what the case wasn't. And I thought that was very interesting. So she outlined again that the prosecution's case was that Gerry Hutch was an active participant, that he was actually there in the Regency Hotel, dressed in tactical gear, armed with an AK-47, and more than that, that he was one of 2 men who shot David Byrne in the reception area of the hotel. A very, very specific allegation. And I must say, I was taken aback when the prosecuting barrister opened his case back in October. We spoke about this on your show, and that was the first time that we got an indication as to what the specific allegation against Gerry Hutch was. Looking back, perhaps naively so, I thought that the case against Gerry Hutch was going to be that he was organising things from afar, that he was pulling the strings from afar. I never thought for one second that somebody like Gerry Hutch would have been in the Regency Hotel that day, armed with an AK-47, firing shots at an associate of the Kinahan cartel. But that was the case presented by the prosecution. That was the case that they had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And it seems that the evidence of Jonathan Dowdall was the cornerstone of that case presented by the prosecution, but he wasn't believed by the judges of the Special Criminal Court, as I say. And Ms. Justice Tara Burns said something else that was very interesting yesterday. She wondered what the case would have looked like if Jonathan Dowdall hadn't entered the equation, because you have to remember that the decision to charge Gerry Hutch with the murder of David Byrne was made long before Jonathan Dowdall agreed to testify against Gerry Hutch, long before he made a statement implicating Gerry Hutch in what happened at the Regency Hotel that day. So I think it is correct to say that at the 11th hour, the prosecution team seemed to change its tack, and on the opening day back in October, as I say, we learned what their case was, that they were putting Gerry Hutch in the hotel firing shots at David Byrne.
Okay, I note that the Minister for Justice said, obviously he can't comment because of the separation of powers, which is only right. But he did suggest that the Garda investigation into the murder at the Regency Hotel is ongoing. What does that actually mean? We lost Frank. We'll let him go. I think that might be the end of the boxing element of that story for now. But that is on the front page of all of the newspapers today. And our thanks to Frank for being absolutely sensational over the course of not being sensational, for being brilliant, and the absence of sensationalism. But, just good old-fashioned, high-quality journalism from Frank Greaney, as we've come to expect over the years. An absolutely brilliant journalist. We're delighted to have been able to access him over the course of the trial. It is 8:41 this morning here on OTB AM. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream, or of course you can get us at Off The Ball AM on Twitter. Stephen Nolan says, realistically you can pick a third team here, and that would also probably finish top 8 in the URC. ML89 says, for all their credit and plaudits of Leinster not underachieved in Europe, especially considering the gap between them and the rest of the league. 5 years since they last won it, they seem to be getting more credit now than the team that was sweeping up European Cups in the previous decade. If you get beaten in the final, like Bayern Munich, we have to win the league, but we can't guarantee we're going to win the European Cup. You just have to be competitive for it, and they've been competitive for it. So there are other teams who are also good, I suppose, is the other side of that. Now, at 8:42, we're saying good morning to John Duggan. John, good morning to you. How are you?
Ger Shane, how is the form?
Good. Interesting times.
Mm-hmm. What type of sensation would you like this morning?
You take us wherever you want to go.
But John, I've got a comment here. John Donnelly says, Shane, typical Man United fan, never calls out ex-players like Ferdinand when they make stupid comments. Keep up the good work, Helen. I can sense the sarcasm. We were talking about Rio Ferdinand's comments yesterday. Would you prefer to finish second and not win a trophy, a la potentially Arsenal, or finish third, like Manchester United,
and win the Carabao Cup?
Or win a trophy?
No, he said
win the Carabao Cup. We'll go with it.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the context of the club and what you've won. So for Tottenham, I think third in the Carabao Cup would be more important than second and no trophy. But if you're a club like Arsenal, that has won a lot of cups, even Arteta's first trophy was quite soon. They won a lot of FA Cups under Wenger. I think second is probably more important because it just suggests that you're only one space off the top.
Does Arsenal feel like does it feel like they're going to push on from here and continue to challenge over the next?
I think there'll be more. I think this was the season that kind of caught everybody in the hop to a degree. I think it'll be more challenging for them with the fact that Newcastle will have 4 to 5 elite signings. Eddie Howe was speaking about yesterday, And you'll have to think that eventually Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea will get their act together. In that basis, then I think Arsenal, this is their chance. I do feel, and they're still ahead. They're 2-1 in the betting yesterday. I was looking, but if they got something at the Etihad, it could all just turn again. I just feel that I would agree with Gary Neville that I think Arsenal are ahead of where they should be. I think they've had a great season. I think all they should get is credit. They don't have any world superstars in their team. They're a brilliant unit, and I think they've been brilliant.
Christian Stellini.
I'd love to be I'd love to be in Arsenal's position. Arsenal talking about Declan Rice has been the talk over the last week. I'm not hearing any of that from Tottenham.
Who would you rather be, Arsenal or Man United at the start of next season?
I think it depends what happens with the sale of Manchester United as a club. I think in the long term, if
imagine there's a chance it's still the Glazers and the Man United fans are like, yeah, we won the Carabao Cup last year. Yeah, we got the Glazers. Yeah, you feeling then, Shane? You feeling that?
I don't think any Man United fan wants to feel the Glazers
you'd be
still in charge.
revelling in the Carabao Cup. What a great season we had. We won the Carabao Cup. Yay.
Beautiful doorstepping of Sky and Avram Glazer to look forward to over the next year.
We'll always have that Eric Ten Hag and Roy Keane moment on the pitch.
Give me tickets to the Carabao Cup final, basically. Yeah. Don't laugh at the Carabao Cup, lads. It's a trophy. I know John's not going to laugh.
I'm not laughing at the Carabao Cup. I'm laughing at Man United saying, we had a better season than you because we won the Carabao Cup. It's like, no, hang on a second. In that instance, as I've already pointed out, you've been beaten by either Brighton or Man City in the FA Cup.
But okay,
what a great season.
They still might go on and win the FA Cup as well.
But not in that instance. Not in the way that
not
was.
Not in the hypothetical we're talking about. Fair enough. Christian Stellini said last week, John, that every match remaining for Spurs, the last 8 games were cup finals, and then they go out and lose 3-2 to Bournemouth.
Yes.
What do you say?
What I say is I'm just totally disheartened and disillusioned with the way the club's been run from a football perspective. Great business people. I just do think that there's a disconnect between being a supporter now and is Daniel Levy going to be there forever as the chairman? Been there 22 years now. Is he going to be there for another 22 years? And then there really is, you can't touch what it's meant to be, almost to be a supporter of a club when you don't feel, I don't have any confidence in the way the football product's being run there. Doesn't matter who the manager is, it'll be the 12th permanent manager. Arsenal, you get a sense there's a journey that they're on under Arteta. He seems to have a huge amount of control there, and I don't see that at Tottenham at all. And I think Harry Kane probably will leave if they get the money from him. And I just don't see where Tottenham are going under the leadership of the chairperson, who has not proven since he sacked Pochettino that the football product is clear.
Porrick Daly makes the point, is it not more that the chance mightn't come around again for Arsenal, no matter how good Arteta is? Look at Klopp, only managed one league as good as he has been. I think that's the key point. So whatever about Gary Neville's point about them being slightly ahead of where they should be, Leicester were slightly ahead of where they should be. They were miles ahead of where they should be. That was like a magnificent flare-up where it turned out they had genuinely world-class players in several key positions, and that team got picked off fairly soon afterwards. Like, you know, if Arsenal don't win the league, is there a possibility that Saka and Martinelli end up at Barcelona and Real Madrid and somewhere else over the next couple of years? There is that possibility. So you do kind of need to seize the moment when it presents itself. And that's why I think they will feel let down at the end of the season. That's why it will be heartbreaking for them if they don't manage to seal the deal and win the league. They'll look back at the Granit Xhaka challenge. They'll look back at the missed penalty from the weekend and they'll be like, oof, that'll always be what might have been.
Touching Newcastle 96 about it. Tottenham 2016, Tottenham 2017. We had our chance and we're not going to get our chance again for, 10, 20 years. And that's why I think the clubs used to be sold.
Yeah, I think that's why you got to seize the moment as well. So that's the
Carpe Diem.
That's the side of that. So what else, JD?
Well, we could talk about Todd Boehly. I don't know if or the horse racing or the Just Stop Oil. I don't know how disgusted you are, Shane, this morning about the orange ball and snooker. How much is it worth?
Yeah, how much is it worth is the question. The orange, it was quite a protest.
Imagine trashing the snooker, the most inoffensive sport in the world. Imagine trashing snooker. Imagine if you were a snooker fan like Shane and Anorak, and you've saved up from another country and
you've that photo, like you've iconic.
You've gone to Sheffield. You've paid your hotel money for your Travelodge or your Holiday Inn or whatever these hotels are, and
very glamorous. Yeah,
you're in Sheffield, and you're so excited about the snooker, and they're so respectfully quiet in the audience, and then all this happens is these people come in and trash the whole place, and you're just kind of thinking to yourself, oh, is this really snooker loopy? Is this completely snooker loopy? And these people are not just they're not helping climate change. I don't think.
Are they not?
I don't think so. I just think people are just pissed off them, to be honest.
Everybody's aware of the Stop Oil and Everybody's.
But people are probably more likely to go out and buy oil now today after that than stop it.
I don't know if they are. I don't know if that's true. I think that
my humour.
Yeah, but I think protest seems to work.
Did the Grand National protest work?
I think it probably did. Yeah. I mean, certainly there were more conversations about eating meat yesterday and the safety of horse racing than there would have been if there hadn't been a protest.
Yeah. I just think social media has amplified everything. Like 30 years ago, there was a massive animal rights protest at the Grand National during the Void race, and there was smoke bombs all over the course and everything. And the BBC and Aintree agreed that they wouldn't highlight it, and it just kind of got submerged. Now there was a big controversy, the fact that the race didn't even go ahead. I just think everything is amplified now by social media, and that in a way is a good thing because it forces a debate, but it also forces a polarisation of extremes, where you have the absolute zealots in one way or the other, and you don't really have then a middle ground around things. Like the race is undoubtedly safer than it was 30, 40 years ago. The fences are lower. It's almost like a 4-mile hurdle race now. But that causes issues itself because the horses then go faster. They bunch up more. Jockeys look to get a better position. And maybe the argument would be to reduce the field to 30 runners because most of the issues in the Grand National happened in the first circuit. But I do think it is a safer race. I just think horse racing as a entity is always going to have the potential for risk and the potential for accidents. You can't have jump racing without accidents, without faulters at any course throughout the whole year and without risk. And just that's just the nature of it. And there is a demand for the Grand National. It's watched by 600 million people worldwide. So there is an appeal, there is a demand for it. And maybe we just have to say, if you want to have it, you're going to have to accept that this is part of it.
Anything else going on, JD?
Have you spoken about Todd Boehly calling the Chelsea players embarrassing?
I mean, an hour-long conversation. This is ridiculous.
But just back to the Tottenham point again, though, that if you're a fan, you can't touch this. You can't influence, and maybe you never could, but you can't influence what's going to happen at your football club. And that's why I think international football is so popular at times, because there's a degree of investment in your country, and we can have debates about Stephen Kenny this or Stephen Kenny that, or the FAI this or the FAI that. With a football club, it's really just... like, what can Tottenham do to change the direction of the football product there? Nothing. Can they have protests? Can they vote with their feet and not go to the games?
I don't know. I do wonder if Todd was in explaining to the dressing room how embarrassed he was because somebody was giving him... They were giving it to him at the end of the game.
And maybe Chelsea are better at that than Tottenham.
He was,
I think Chelsea are generally, they're a bit more of an edgier fan base in that regard. Like the Man United fans have been not afraid to go against the Glazers in the European Super League and that kind of thing.
Should the owners be anywhere near the dressing room? Do they have every right to be in the dressing room, do you think, or should they stay away from the football?
I think, well, what would you do if you owned a football club?
I'd maybe go in and say a few words after a match and say, I hope things get better. Keep going.
That's well done.
Going.
Yeah,
I wouldn't sit there for an hour.
Fair play to you there.
Happened quite a lot in Tuesday.
I spent 600 million on you chumps.
But I wouldn't sit there.
3.6 billion I've spent on you chumps.
Pointing fingers at players and using the words like
embarrassing. I think you would. I think you would.
Remember the GA sponsors?
I probably would.
The GA sponsors used to go into dressing rooms, didn't they?
That was they got to touch the hem of the superstar
or the hem of the shirt that they sponsor.
Right.
Yeah. All right, lads.
JD, good stuff. More from John on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. Now, I do want to tell you about a big night that we have coming up. It's a live UEFA Champions League roadshow in partnership with Just Eat on the 3rd of May in the Mansion House in Dublin. We're going to be joined by UEFA Champions League winners John O'Shea and Wes Brown, along with Arsenal legend Paul Merson. It's sure to be a brilliant night's entertainment. This is an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events. We will see you on the night. Just Eat, the official food delivery partner of the UEFA Champions League. Now, Harriet Prior of the Anfield Wrap is with us to talk to us about a big win for Liverpool last night. Harriet, we've seen this movie before where Liverpool absolutely thump somebody and then go out the next week and get beaten. But surely this time it's different, right?
I think every time we've said it's different, I've probably come on after a few big wins and said, things will be different now, the season will click into place. And that's kind of been the nature of Liverpool's season. The lack of consistency has been quite alarming at times, and we have had these really big wins and then crash back down to earth. And actually, funny enough, I believe that was our first win in all competitions since the 7-0 against Manchester United at Anfield. So you can tell the way that things have gone since then. But yeah, it definitely looked like a more positive performance. And look, the manager came out after the game yesterday yesterday and said that it had clicked. And the kind of one thing that does give me hope that maybe things will be brighter for the end of the season, but crucially looking ahead to next season, is the fact that the formation was very different. They were trying different things last night and they worked. I think at times this season, the things have clicked in the standard 4-3-3 formation, or things have just been good over a period of 90 minutes, but there's not been any real change. And last night I saw real change, real effort to make things different, and that benefited every individual on the pitch.
How were they different last night? What was the change that you witnessed?
Yeah, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold being in this new hybrid role was probably the biggest one for me, playing a back three essentially. So you had Konate on the right-hand side, Virgil van Dijk, and then Robertson on the left, and Fabinho kind of dropping back when Liverpool were out of possession, and Trent kind of sometimes coming back into defence, but just being able to roam a bit more freely. And I think that system allowed players to just play to their strengths a little bit more, but particularly Trent's. And I think you could see when he's given options and when he's given the ability to look up from kind of the heart of the pitch and the heart of the midfield, he can be so much more creative and have so much more impact on the game. And he gets 2 assists last night as well. So you kind of see that in real play as well. But Curtis Jones, for me, he kind of was playing a little bit higher up the pitch and gets to have a real impact in that way as well. And then all of the forwards, you kind of see how their flexibility in terms of them not having to be stuck in sort of central right, left, then being able to roam around the forward area of the pitch really helped them. So it was a system that was set up to get the best out of the players he has available, because as much as we want to talk about Liverpool bringing in new players, that's not going to happen now before the end of the season. So need to try some new things, and that's exactly what happened.
That position suits him perfectly, Trent, Harriet, doesn't it? I mean, we were trying to find a way, I guess Klopp was trying to find a way of bringing him into midfield, but now he's managed to do it, but also keep it right back as well. And as you said, the assists are going to come now, and that was the thing that was missing this season.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned the assist. The first one comes from a more natural right back position. It's kind of the pass we've seen from Trent quite a few times. It's the one that we're used to seeing from him. And then the second one was from more of a central role. And you can kind of see how the options that he has and the freedom that he has will really benefit him. And it will be really interesting now to see whether this is just something of a quick fix this season, or whether Klopp is trying this out now to build ahead to next season. And if so, that I think changes plans for what needs to happen in the summer. But yeah, definitely being able to have that space. And I think at times in the game yesterday, you see how he looks up and how he's not instantly crowded by defenders. And he enjoys that. He has time to take a look, make the pass that he wants to make, maybe make a run, and that seemed to suit him down to the ground.
Does it feel different from the victory over Manchester United in that can they push on now and not allow those results? And I think it was Bournemouth, wasn't it, after the United game that Liverpool fell to a defeat. So does this feel like different, a bit of a turning point, a push for top 4 possibly?
Yeah, I'm kind of reluctant to say anything's a turning point this season when we've been burnt a lot of times by results going badly after a really, really good result. So I don't know. And I think pushing for top 4 now maybe feels a little bit unrealistic. But what I kind of want to see now is growth and progress for next season, because I think at times when we've finished seasons a little bit weaker than we've played the rest of the season, the next season hasn't started so well. So I think priority now is just really making sure that there's a kind of awareness that this is kind of a pre-season in a weird way. Let's try out a few things, see what works, and then kind of see where the table lands at the end of the season. I think the manager said as much last night. We'll kind of go into the next 9 games, I think it is now, see where the table lands at the end of it, but just make sure you're trying to win the next 9, because it's not going to be an easy task to get back into that top 4 if that is the aim, but who knows, nothing's impossible.
What has been the response from the people who consume the Anfield Wrap to the news leaking or being briefed, or however it came out, that Jude Bellingham wasn't going to be an option this summer? What was the response generally from your users?
Yeah, one of probably overwhelming negativity, I would say. I think a lot of people were really expecting that Jude Bellingham will be the big push for the summer, only because it was spoken about so much in January and even into last summer that they were kind of saving up funds, the owners, to make a big push for Jude Bellingham. And I think what was kind of confusing for people is that everyone always knew how much Jude Bellingham would cost. He was never going to be a player that you'd get for under 100 million. So now the line, who knows whether it's true or not, but the line that the media have mainly been going with is that they felt that he was too expensive. Well, we kind of always knew that. I think that the reality is that Liverpool's ownership and management have realised there's so much more work that needs to be done, that they can't invest that much into just one player because they need to spread the funds a little bit more over 4 positions or maybe even more. So I kind of, it makes sense from a pure business perspective, but also I think it's about time that Liverpool fans kind of felt like they were going after a really big player, a really exciting player, and that is exactly what Jude Bellingham was. So I understand where the frustration has come from.
The team, as lined out last night with Jota, Gakpo and Salah starting, we did have, I think, the full array of attacking players available. So Luis Diaz comes off the bench, Darwin Núñez comes off the bench, and obviously Firmino's leaving, we know, at the end of the season. But is there a future where all 5 players are rotated in and out of the team over the course of a full season if they were to remain fit, which, let's face it, is unlikely anyway?
Yeah, I think it probably puts Liverpool in quite a good position in that forward line, and that's maybe something you can't say about the midfield and the defence at the moment. So yeah, we know that Firmino is leaving in the summer, but if you look back a couple of years ago, it was Salah, Mane, Firmino, who were just going again and again and again, and then you brought Jota into the mix, and we felt really good about having 4 forwards that you could rely on. And now we've got Diaz in that mix as well. We're losing Firmino, we've got Gakpo and Núñez. It's all kind of shifting a little bit, but you hopefully go into next season having 5 really good top level players who you can really rely on. I think Gakpo's been so impressive in the last few games in particular, where he's really kind of showing what he can do on the ball and how comfortable he is. Núñez, we can see week on week adapting a little bit more. I think it's taken him more time, but he seems to be really finding his feet and getting those goals. He gets another one last night. And yeah, Salah's obviously signed that new contract last season, so he'll still be a big part. And Diaz, if we can keep them all fit, you think that was an area of the pitch where, yeah, Klopp can rely on 5 really, really talented players.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm comparing and contrasting that with the Bellingham decision, is that they've actually managed that change relatively well over the course of the last couple of seasons from a position of strength. It looks like next season it'll still be a position of strength. And that's why I would give the hierarchy at least some, not a free pass, but some credit in the bank for their ability to regenerate that. If they can do something similar by spending the 100 million on 3 £30 million players, 2 of whom immediately contribute into the midfield area, then all of a sudden, like, okay, I understand why you didn't spend everything on one player.
Yeah, I can kind of see that point of view, but to an extent, that forward line, the way that they regenerated that was really clever, and they did that because they had foresight. So they knew that Sadio Mane was perhaps going to leave, so they brought in a replacement. They knew that that Gakpo needed to be brought in. They've just not really done that in midfield, and I think that's why so many fans are frustrated, because they can see the players are either aging or not getting the game time or consistently injured. And yeah, I think since 2018, the only first team senior midfielder that's been brought in is Thiago. So if they've got that foresight for the forward line, why is that not translated to midfield? And arguably it has in defence as well, bringing Konate, and that was a really clever signing for around the 30 million mark, 36 I believe it was. So why is the midfield kind of been left to rot on its own, I suppose? So yeah, it's obviously a good thing that forward line hasn't, but then it causes more frustration because people can see clear as day that the midfield hasn't had the attention that it needs.
Diogo Jota was one massive positive out of last night, Harriet. I mean, he's been bereft of confidence for quite some time, and even at the start of the game last night, you're thinking, still, this is a guy whose touch just isn't there. But he gets his couple of goals, and this could be the start of a good spell for him.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes or so, as you mentioned, were not the best start, Diogo, but I think with him, he's been Klopp's preferred option when he is fit a lot of the time because of the work that he does on the ball and in terms of assists and build-up play. But then last night you see the other element of his game, which is so important, which is getting the goals. It's been around a year mark since he's last scored, so it was really crucial for him to get them, and then he gets the other one later on in the game as well. So you can see the amount of confidence that's brimming through him and the amount that has an impact on his gameplay as well. So yeah, hopefully now that he has got those goals, and that's kind of off the back of his mind that he hasn't scored in nearly a year or whatever the time frame is, that he can push forward now. So yeah, I was impressed with his performance probably post the 20-minute mark. Bad
mistake by Ibrahima Konate for the Leeds goal. Of course, it doesn't matter at this rate, but it's still concerning to see those little defensive slips.
Yeah, it's kind of indicative of Liverpool's season, how things have been going. Even when the game seems to be fully in Liverpool's control, there's little mistakes and errors that happen, and then suddenly you concede a really easy goal that should never happen. Konate isn't one to make mistakes very often, so I hope, glad it was in a game that didn't really have any outcome in the end. But yeah, it's kind of characteristic of things that have been happening at Liverpool. Too many silly mistakes, too many giving the ball away in key areas and conceding an easy goal. But luckily, the response was really good, and that was what pleased me the most last night. Straight away, his head was up. It was like, right, doesn't matter. We're going to build from here, and we'll all be fine. And Liverpool haven't dealt well with adversity this season, and they did last night.
It was interesting to see the pressing and the work rate, and Jurgen Klopp seemed to reference that in his post-match comments as well, that has been something that is a trademark of this Liverpool team in recent seasons, and we haven't seen it this year. People pointed to Liverpool maybe being tired after last year's campaign and competing on four fronts, but clearly that work rate and pressing is starting to come back a little bit.
Yeah, there was a desire to win the ball back that hasn't been there in a lot of games this season. I think you've watched certain games where it just felt like Liverpool have let the opposition control the pace of it. They've let them pass around in any way they want. They've let them decide what they want to do. And last night was a little bit of a change in that Liverpool were deciding the pace of the game. They were the ones winning the ball back high up the pitch. That intensity you mentioned, it was really palpable. And we've missed that so much as Liverpool fans watching the game. So hopefully, that can be a positive thing that we can take forward into the next games. But the manager said himself, we've been trying to do that all season. I'm not entirely sure why it's not been clicking and it's not been working. And sometimes it was a mixture of mental, physical fatigue and lack of confidence, a lack of trust in each other. But all those things seemed to work last night. And when they do still play that high intensity football, winning the ball back, pressing high at the pitch, you can see how the benefits come from that.
4 of the next 5 league games are at home. So they've got Forest at home, they're away at West Ham, then they've got Spurs, Fulham and Brentford in a run of games all at home, which their home form has been really good this season. So actually they could go on a bit of a run here and suddenly be on the coattails of the teams battling for fourth.
Yeah, I'm scared to say Liverpool are going to go on a run because they'll probably embarrass me later down the line. But no, that the home form has still been really good amidst a season where results haven't been that great and neither have the performances. So that does give you a little bit of hope. I think people have conflicting views on whether they'd want to finish in the Europa League or Europa Conference League spots. But yeah, just trying to win as many of those as possible because Newcastle and Tottenham are making errors. They're the ones kind of in and around. I know there's Aston Villa, Brighton above Liverpool as well at the moment. But those are the ones in particular you think are challenging for that fourth spot of the top 4. So they are both making mistakes. There is 9 games left to play. So just see what happens come the end of them.
That away form as well, on the other element of that, Harriet, that's the first win since mid-February Liverpool have had away from home. You look at the away games to come, you've got West Ham, Leicester and Southampton away from home, all very winnable games. So all of a sudden, if you can pick up a bit of away form to add to what happens at Anfield, then they should be in good shape.
Yeah, all very winnable games, but it is the teams in the bottom half of the table away from home that Liverpool have really, really struggled with this season. I think it goes back to the first day of the season, the game away to Fulham that they drew 2-2, and Fulham have had a good season since then, but it was indicative of how Liverpool's away form was going to play out over the course of the season. They look a bit devoid of any real sense of energy and all these things when they're away from home. Last night was the first time in a really long time that I think they've performed well, not at Anfield. So hopefully that will give them a bit of confidence that they can do it, and they can do it this season. They don't need to kind of wipe the season off and start again next year. And yeah, if they can pick up points in some of these games, and like you said, all of them should be winnable games in theory on paper, then that might lead them to a late charge for top 4. But at the moment, I'm not entirely sure I can see that happening.
The constant drumbeat of potential sale originally and then investment that seems to have gone a little bit quiet just recently. What's the latest scenario that you think is most likely to happen?
Yeah, well, there was new noises coming out of the club that FSG didn't want to sell the club, and I think they were looking for potential investment, and who knows when that will come. But I think that is the most likely scenario moving forward now, that FSG will maintain kind of majority ownership of the club and then be looking to bring in a few minority stakeholders or minority investors, whatever you want to call it, perhaps to boost the kind of funds that they have in the summer, perhaps to boost the funds they have moving forward in investment. But FSG have always kind of been really careful with how they use their money. They've never wanted to invest drastically more than they're bringing in the other way in with regards to transfers. So I think, yeah, the most likely scenario now is that they do bring in an external investor, but how much that is and how much they're willing to bring in is another question at the moment.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Harriet, good stuff. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Harriet Prior, the Anfield Wrap there, talking to us about the situation at Liverpool. That fixture list that you've right out. So, I mean,
it's not bad, is it?
Well, it's kind of dream scenario.
When your away games are against some of the bottom teams, I know Harriet mentioned that their form against the bottom teams hasn't been good, but
Southampton on the last day of the season, you would expect will already be gone.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that frees them up to play the best football of the season, who knows? Leicester is a week prior to that. It's actually 13 days, 2 weeks prior to that. That's the other away game, and West Ham. Now, West Ham all of a sudden look to have a little bit of life in them.
Yeah.
So
the question for Liverpool has always been, can they keep it going? Like, they get a big result and they stop. Like, so all of a sudden, it's just a little bit of consistency that you're looking for with this Liverpool team.
Yeah, from the time they went 2-0 down to Arsenal, they've been great.
Yeah, from that period onwards. So maybe that Arsenal game
is like a game and a half here. So we're not getting too carried away.
Yeah, but even you look at players like Curtis Jones last night. He starts for the third game in a row after being out for a period, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of consistency with the team even. So
yeah, I mean they did try and sign Arthur Mello, hoping that he was going to be an answer at midfield, and then he's obviously been a complete bust. So it's not like they weren't entirely aware, and I think they assumed that some of those younger players would be better for longer and they get more minutes out of them at a high level than they'd previously expected. But I don't know, they have managed to sign all those forward players with no one ever really expecting them to sign those forward players. Like Jota was a surprise, Gakpo was a surprise, Nunez and Diaz kind of came a window earlier than we thought they would.
Yeah.
And so next season they'll have all those 5 players, assuming Salah stays in the summer, as their forwards. It's a good forward line.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Do you know what I mean?
On
like
paper.
week in, week out, you're going to have somebody who's in form.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, Jurgen Klopp, after the match last night, he looks a little bit more relaxed. It's easy to be relaxed after you win 6-1 at home, granted, or 6-1 away from home. But even last week in the press conference, he was like, not attacking some of the Liverpool journalists, but really saying, you know, I read in the papers some of the stories you're writing and they are just completely wrong. Properly going after some of the journalists and the stories that
was he talking about anything specific?
There was no indication as to which stories in particular he was talking about, but certainly Jurgen Klopp is a man who reads the newspapers, listens to the coverage. He listened to Gabby Agbonlahor and Talksport at one point, I think he mentioned in a press conference. So he's a man that pays attention to what's being said and written about this Liverpool team, but looked a man a little bit more at peace last night after the match. A result like that, clearly you're going to be anyway.
Really interesting to see how that Trent role evolves. Like, he's still only 24, clearly worth having in your team if you can do something with him. What would Pep do with Trent in his side? Would he be burned out? Would he
leave him on the bench?
Would he have replaced him with John Stones? Is that what we're saying here? Like,
sell him to Bayern Munich?
I don't think so. I think he'd find a way to get him into that role where you step into midfield, like trying to turn him into Philip Lahm. And I don't know, maybe that's the next evolution for Klopp, and it's like brave and exciting, and they have an overload in midfield all of a sudden and all the pressure, and there's a way for that to work. So anyway, here's some highlights on the OTB Podcast Network for you today. The latest from the Hurling Podcast, where they're doing their predictions for the season. There are some hostages to fortune, it's fair to say. Joe Canning chats to Aisling O'Reilly at the launch of Borgosh Energy's coverage for the year, and Monday Night Rugby, looking back on the weekend's big stories, and of course the Ireland performance in the Six Nations. More preview of that coming your way across all of our network over the course of the rest of the week. And a reminder, the Football Pod are hitting the road again. They're heading to Killarney for their first show of the summer, with thanks to AIB. Tommy Rooney, Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue will be bringing the Football Pod to the Great Southern Hotel for a live episode on Thursday the 4th of May. Join us for a brilliant night of football, chat and crack, with plenty of focus on the All-Ireland champions and the contenders who are coming for their throne. It's an exclusive off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events. It's all in partnership with AIB. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. After these ads, Alex Denning.
You're listening
to OTB AM. The Football Pod are hitting the road again, and we're delighted to announce that we're heading to Killarney for our first big show of the summer. All with thanks to AIB.
It was quality. It was a good one.
Join us for a brilliant night of football, chat and crack, with plenty of focus on the All-Ireland champions Kerry and the contenders who are coming for their throne.
Does it keep you up at night with not winning Sam Maguire? No.
This is an exclusive off-air event, and tickets are limited, so don't delay.
We have a great show ahead. We are going to get our special guest out tonight.
Tickets are €20, including booking fee. Go to offtheball.com/event now. The Football Pod, in partnership with AIB. Check out #TheToughest for more. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's 13 minutes past 9. You're watching OTB AM. I'm delighted to say we're joined in studio by Alex Denning, Motorsport Ireland Young Driver of the Year. Alex, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Last time we saw you, we all had our helmets on, so you didn't recognise us.
Yeah.
And myself and Shane and Nathan.
Yeah.
It's just three of us?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it was competitive, but pretty sure I was the fastest.
Well, Nathan begs to differ, but you're sitting here in front of me, so I suppose you are.
It was nervy, I'll tell you. The first few laps, you're thinking, this is, how do these guys do this for a living? But once you get into it, you're like, it's properly addictive. Like, you can sense the thrill, but it was an experience and a half, I have to say.
When we were down there, you were waiting to find out you'd been shortlisted for the Motorsport Ireland Young Driver of the Year, but you ended up winning it. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. There was 140 candidates, and at that point we were shortlisted down to 3 people, so 2 of the other instructors were actually working in Mondelo at the time, so quite a nerve-wracking time, but we had a great time with you guys down there. Like you said, it's quite a unique experience, and it's the same for us guys. Every time we get into a faster car, it feels surreal how fast you're going, but you felt it as well. After 3 or 4 laps, it just becomes normal until you look down at the speed and see you're doing 200 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. What do you normally drive? What car are you driving in at the moment? What are you racing in at the moment?
So I'm driving an Aston Martin GT4 car. So that's a spin-off of their production road car. And they race against 6 other manufacturers in GT4 European Series.
Right. And so is that a single seater? No,
so it's a sports car, so it's like any kind of supercar you'd see on the road, but they're a fully fledged race car. They're built from the factory as a race car, so they're fully stripped out. They're on slick tyres, they have a racing gearbox, etc. So not only do they go fast in a straight line, but they go very fast around the corners.
What speed are they going?
Top speed about 250, 260 kilometres an hour.
Goodness, right.
Yeah.
And so where are you racing those?
So first weekend is Monza next weekend, or this weekend even, and that's going to be the fastest track on the calendar. So we'll be seeing them top speeds 250 kilometres an hour.
Temple of Speed.
Yeah, Temple of Speed. Yeah, I've never been there, but last year I'd never been to any of the tracks in the UK, and it was a first time every time. But I have a racing simulator at home that simulates the track and the car, and it's incredibly accurate. So as soon as I get there, I hit the ground running.
You've been watching Formula 1 since you were a kid, no doubt. So going to Monza for the first time this weekend and taking a really fast car on the track, that must be dream come true stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, it's surreal. And I have to remind myself every time I go to these tracks that how privileged I am to do it. And you take it back and look 5 years ago, if I had looked at the situation I was going to be in now, I wouldn't believe it. So yeah, it's important to remind yourself of how lucky we are to do these things, and for sure, yeah, it's going to be surreal, when I stand up in the bank and in Monza for the first time.
So you mentioned it's an Aston Martin car. Since we were talking to you last, I think you were signed up to the Aston Martin Academy as well, which is a massive step in your career. What does it mean for you to have that? What does it entail?
Yeah, it means a lot, so it entails there's probably 400 or 500 Aston Martin drivers across the world, but I'm narrowed down to one of 20. They give us support for racing simulation, media, fitness, and guide us through our career. So the goal is to win that, and if I win that, I get factory assistance, so I'm affiliated with the brand to race for Aston Martin as such. That came about 3 weeks ago after they saw my progress. I'd won race out in Spain, where I finished second on my first time out. So to be affiliated with a brand with such heritage means the world to me.
You've been balancing college work in the last couple of years as well with driving. How do you even manage that? Because it seems like such a discipline, driving, that is that you need to be fully invested in it. You need to be fully concentrated on it. So it must have been quite a challenge, I guess, thinking of other things as well.
Well, yeah, I'm glad it's over at the moment. Yeah, I'm graduated now, so all I have to worry about is my motor racing. But yeah, for sure, it was a massive balancing act. I had my first race last year, which we were contemplating not even doing because of my final year exams the week afterwards. So I had practice on the Thursday. I was studying on the Friday, back to racing on the Saturday or on Sunday. But I always find you can make time for these things. You know, when you don't have anything to do, you end up doing nothing. And then when you have lots to do, you actually end up doing so much more. So it was just about balancing things, and I found that, you know, I was able to balance it quite nicely, and I was able to get my degree whilst also finishing quite highly in the racing.
I remember talking to like the likes of Alex Dunn even down at Mondello before, and it often comes, the racing gene, that way. Like, your family is steeped in racing completely. Parents, you've grandparents, aunties, uncles. Literally, you were never going to be doing anything else.
No, it was fully ingrained in me as a child. I've been racing for nearly 16 years now. Most people look at me and say, you hardly even look 16. How the hell are you racing 16 years? But I started back in 2007 racing karts. At that stage, both my parents were racing against each other. My grandfather used to race. Two of my aunties used to race. My uncle.
What were they all driving? Brother. All the same type of car, or different cars. My dad raced in Clio Cup and Fiat Punto Abarth. He was a 5-time champion, so he was the most successful out of them all. But yeah, mainly tin top saloons, mainly in Ireland. So yeah, there was never any time that we expected to be doing anything else.
Did you say your parents used to race against each other?
Yeah.
Is that how they met?
Say again?
Is that how they met? They met through racing?
No, they met separately to that, but I think my mum got the bug off my dad, and there's actually some photographs of my mum running into my dad, so they came to blows.
Okay, so tell us about you start out as a karter. What's the progress? Like, how do you keep going, and ultimately, what is there a specific aim? Like, is Formula One the dream? Is that a realistic dream? How do you get there? What's the staging post along the way? Or are there loads of other things you could do? Be like, yeah, that's a brilliant career for me.
Yeah, there's many spin-offs you can do out of racing. I've chose the GT route in particular because nowadays it's extremely difficult to race in Formula One, as many people know. You know, you need luck, you need skill, you need contacts, and you need a lot of money. So the GT route was a more realistic route, and there's a lot more opportunities there. And as you said, like, you know, I started racing karts at 8. You can actually start racing karts at 5 now. So you've little kids coming in this height that are doing 70 kilometres an hour. I still can't comprehend it, but yeah, when I was growing up karting, it was always a way of life. But it was only when I got to the age of 18 where I was winning karts at a national level that I said, you know, there could be a career path in this. And when I won the Fiesta ST Championship in Ireland and beat everyone else in Ireland, I knew that there was a strong chance that I could make a career out of this. So
what's the step up from there? Talk us through that kind of. So you go from the Fiesta in Ireland. Where do you go next?
Yeah, so I won the Fiesta ST Championship in Ireland, and then I went to the UK to the Mini JCW Championship, which is one of the most prestigious championships underneath British touring cars. So.
And so JCW, what cars are you talking about?
It's a mini JCW, so it's their fastest road car, which is, it doesn't resemble much of the road car after a while, but that was last year, and they're a very tricky car to drive, even more so than the Aston Martin, and I had 7 wins in that and finished second overall in the championship. So yeah, that gave me a strong confidence boost, and I've now made the move into Europe.
Right, and how do you go from the England success? Is there an agent along the way who's working on behalf of the team who's saying, here, come and try out for this, and is there like is that race in Spain basically, if you do well here, you know, it sounds like a lot of pressure on that one event, or was it kind of preordained in advance of that, like, just don't screw this up and you'll be grand? How does that work?
There's a lot of questions there. Yeah, so a lot of people have managers who you know, carve the path for them. I've always chose to do my own thing, because I always have my own beliefs perfectly aligned. But yeah, I picked the route out for myself. you spoke about pressure there. I always just think of one race ahead, never think of the bigger picture. You know, I obviously have a 3-year plan, but I just try to do the best job as I go along. But yeah, I always think of what's best for me at that time. Where do I want to be, and what can give me the best platform to get there?
And how do Aston Martin get interested on the back of the Minis? What's that process?
Well, that was all preempted by myself. So I said, you know, I want to be an Aston Martin factory driver, and what's going to get me there? And the answer was GT4.
Okay.
So after I did one race completely organised by myself, that's what aroused the interest from Aston Martin themselves.
Okay.
It's funny that we had James Rowe in studio, Kildare driver, obviously over in Indy now in America, but he's almost like a businessman. You talk about the sponsorship and the difficulty in raising sponsorship and awareness, and doing interviews, I guess, is one way as well of getting the media interest in your own profile. But you're almost like a businessman as well, because like James was telling us he was going over to meetings in America and sitting in conference rooms and chatting to people and trying to drum up. So you're a driver in one element, but you're also essentially a business person.
Yeah, well, like you say, it's selling yourself. You know, we don't get on the grid by sitting back. The driving of the car is just one small piece of the jigsaw. So you know, it's far in excess of 6 figures to go motor racing for the year at this level, and I fund the whole campaign through sponsorship. Like you guys touched on earlier, I won the Motorsport Ireland Young Driver of the Year award for €50,000, but still I had to come up with a lot more. And you know, I reach out to contacts, I reach out to business and corporations who might be interested in it, and I have to sell my entity and what I can offer to businesses to expose their brand to get me on the grid to go racing.
Do you ever feel pressure? Because like you mentioned that you look 16. You're not quite 16. You're 23 now, is it?
Yeah, 23.
So, and even when I'm speaking to Alex Dunn and James Rowe and these lads, you all have an aura. There's a confidence. It's not quite an arrogance, but it's a sense of your own self and belief in what you do. So I wonder, do you ever feel pressure?
No.
Never?
No, I like I touched on earlier, I always try to just think of the next race. You can get very caught up if you're going for a championship. Oh, what am I going to do in a year? You know, worry. And it's the same when you're raising a budget to go racing. You know, if you think about the bigger picture, you go, geez, how the hell am I going to raise all that money? How am I going to win the races? I'm up against this fella and this fella. You just have to bring it back and believe in what you've done and you know, you can't take no for an answer. Just look forward to where you want to be, and you'll get there.
Go on. I was going to ask about the specifics then of the season. So Monza this week.
Yeah.
How many races are in that season?
So there's 6 weekends spread across from April to October, and we have 2 races per weekend. So it's each race is an hour long. We swap over. We share the drive with another driver, so it's half an hour each. And two races per weekend.
Okay. And are you guaranteed to be in the car for the whole season, or is it like
provided the other driver doesn't crash? Yes. But yeah, I've signed for the full season.
Okay. And are you in the car on your own for that?
Yeah, you're in the car on your own, but then you do a pit stop to share in the endurance race.
Okay, right. And how do you measure your success versus everybody else? Is distance travelled in that half hour?
Yeah, so it's over the hour race. It's whoever completes the most amount of laps in the least amount of time. So
right,
you know, it is a balancing act because there's someone else sharing the drive. But Aston Martin have all sorts of metrics that can disentangle your performance from the other driver's performance, or even if the Aston Martins are slightly slower than another car, you know, they can disentangle all that. They've more metrics than I can possibly think of, but yeah, you have to focus on your performance as well as the other driver's performance, because it's a team event. And you know, if you go out and burn out the tyres within the half an hour and give the car to him with no tyres, then you're not going to win the race. So
yeah,
it's a team event.
There'll be a little bit of tension after that.
Absolutely,
I imagine. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so that's the plan for the next 5-6 months, is kind of entirely focused on that. How do you prepare physically for that then? What's your physical regimen like, and how intense is that half an hour on the body?
Yeah, it's massively intense. I underestimated it going going to Spain earlier in the year. It's a big jump up from the minis. So like you've over 3 Gs of G-force, and everything is based out of your core, your arms, your neck and your back. So I've done a lot of physical preparation since. I run, go to the gym. So I'm a sponsored gym membership as well, which helps massively. And I normally do mountain biking. I had a mountain biking crash 2 weeks ago, so I'm going to stay off the mountain bike for the year.
The heat as well. Like I got out of that car at Mondello Park that day on a normal day in Ireland, like drenched in sweat, and we were in our own civvies, like, but I mean, you've been racing in 37-degree heat, like you mentioned, Spain and all these places. Like that must be, with all the gear on and the helmet and everything, just physically arduous.
Oh, it's massive. You know, you have your helmet on, you have balaclava, you have underlayers, you have the suit, and well, luckily this year we have aircon, but we've never had aircon before. So, like you said, last year, 37-degree heat in Snetterton with all the fireproof suit on. You don't really think about it at the time. It's when the race finishes and you can actually unwind and relax that you feel like you're going to collapse. Can you drink water during the race? Or yeah, we can now. So in GT racing and endurance racing, there's a drink system in the car. Right. But again, that also gets hot when it's, you know, it can be 60, 70 degrees in heat in the car. So I tried to do some heated spinning classes and some physical work, even in the sauna, to prepare for the heats.
Hot yoga is your only man. Yeah. And so what does success look like then over the next 4 or 5 months? Do you have to win races in the Aston Martin? Is that what the expectation is?
My aim is to be at the front of the Astons. Like I said, there can be a difference in the performance across different manufacturers. So my aim is to be at the front of the Aston Martins. And if that so happens to be the front of the overall grid, absolutely fantastic.
Sorry, you said there were 6 other teams, is that right?
So there's 6 other different cars. So there's Audi, Mercedes, Porsche, McLaren, Toyota, Aston Martin and Chevrolet. So, and
how many Aston Martins are there in the race?
There's going to be 16 Aston Martins.
Okay.
But 52 cars.
52 cars
52
at any
cars.
one time on the track?
At one time on the track.
Holy shit, that's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I've never raced against that many people. I didn't believe it when I first heard it. But
and is there overtaking in that half hour? Or there is, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully if we're out the front, we won't need to do any overtaking.
Wow, okay. But
52 cars down into turn 1 in Monza is going to be interesting to say the least.
How do you simulate that? Because like no matter how good your simulator at home is, it's not quite. Can it manage 52 cars in the race?
Yeah, you can. You could do online races. I've done online races against Max Verstappen, even Fernando Alonso, where you can have 20, 30 cars on it, and it's the same principle. You're racing against real guys on real tracks.
Right. And does that feel real? Does it feel?
Yeah, it does.
Close enough?
It is. It's exact same principles. You know, if you race someone a certain way or make certain mistakes, you'll have the same consequences. So yeah, it is quite close. But like you said, it's the best thing is to do the real thing and do real races, and the only way you can do that is experience over the years.
Right. Alex, we had the terrible news last week of Craig Breen's death over in Croatia. We had Art McCarrick from Motorsport Ireland on paying tribute to him, and just an unimaginably difficult time for him, for his family and for his friends, but such a blow to the Irish motorsport family as well, because he was someone who seemed very, very well liked, such a talented driver, and someone you knew as well.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely surreal. I still can't really comprehend what has happened. When I started racing back in 2008, he was my mechanic for my first year of karting, and even when I won the Young Driver of the Year award, he came out to celebrate. So massive blow to me, but especially to his close friends and his family and James and everyone. It's just surreal. It was a freak accident and very unfortunate. A huge blow to the Irish motoring community.
That's something that Art touched on as well last week. He talked about the fact that Craig used to come back and always race in Ireland, and he always remembered where he came from, and he was a world class driver, but always was keen to come back and give back. And even the fact that you say he come back and helped celebrate your award as well, it speaks volumes of the man.
Yeah, absolutely. He did. Even 2 days before he passed, he was back down in Galway to his roots, bringing young talent into the sport and mentoring and tutoring them. So I couldn't speak higher of the man, and it's just a massive blow to everyone in Irish motor racing. And yeah, condolences to his close family and friends.
Yeah, indeed. We wish you the very best of luck with the year, Alex. Thanks a million for joining us today.
Very much, Ger. Thank you, Shane.
It's Alex Denning, Motorsport Ireland Young Driver of the Year, and hopefully future star. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. On tomorrow's show, David Brady reacting to tonight's Champions League action and plenty more. Right now, we're going to leave you with racing journalist Lydia Hislop chatting to Joe last night about the protests at the Grand National over the weekend. Have a terrific Tuesday.
Now you're welcome, Max. So I'm sure, as you saw at this stage, there was a 14-minute delay to the world's most famous horse race on Saturday. Police ultimately arrested 118 protesters, at least 2 of whom were successful in attaching themselves to fences and causing the delay. Protest consisted of around 300 people. Not everybody get in over the perimeters, and they were part of the welfare group Animal Rising, and they've promised similar protests to come in the months ahead, and they've deemed their efforts a great success, and certainly their actions have put animal welfare debates on the agenda. Just to give a sense of the coverage, Mick Fitzgerald and AP McCoy, Grand National winning jockeys, both were on the ITV coverage with Ed Chamberlain, and they were critical certainly of what was happening. Have a listen.
These are horses that receive 5-star treatment from the minute they're born to when they die. And that's what a point we want to get across. These horses are unbelievably well cared for, and in most instances probably better looked after than some people are.
They're attention seekers. That's what they are. And unfortunately, we're giving them attention because we're actually respecting them enough to let them to take them off the track.
Which we didn't want to, AP, but with the delay to the race, we've got to.
We didn't, Ed. Look, I didn't become a jockey because I wanted the Grand National. I said out this morning, I had 4 sisters, 1 brother. I've never rode a horse in my life. I'm not from a racing family. I got into racing because I loved horses, and I still have horses now that I retired. So, I think, if these people had that much care for it, as you said, they've never been to stables. They don't know. They have no real understanding of the horse, of how well they get looked after.
These horses are our lives. They're our lives, and like tonight when I go home, however long it takes me, whatever time I get home, my wife will be out there looking after them, and she will be first thing tomorrow morning. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job.
Sandy Thompson, the trainer of now deceased horse Hill 16, he was on TalkSport earlier on today talking about the death of Hill 16. Fell at the first fence. Have a listen.
I can understand it, but there's proper ways to do it. And the proper way is not for them. This is actually, by them, it's actually a publicity stunt. They're not actually, if you go on their website, they're all about us all having a plant-based diet. So they've decided, making one of the biggest sporting events in the world, to make people aware of who they are. And, it hasn't come out very well for them because they have definitely contributed to the death of a horse. That argument will rage. They will deny it. But, we know our horses. We know what happens. The facts are there.
And just a final piece of audio. It caught the ear. I caught the ear this morning. Nicky Campbell, for instance, on 5 Live. This has very much been big talking point across the UK media. Threw it out to listeners to give their views on the protests and on racing. Have a listen.
Kevin in Manchester, you kick off.
I sat down, I watched the Grand National, and all a certain racing team was talking about on a certain channel, was the welfare of the horses, at home. They're treated like millionaires. They give them what they want, But the one point that everyone's missing is, why don't they just lower the fences? Just lower them. The height of the fences and what them horses have to go through on that day, especially when it's a hot and warm day and the ground is absolutely rock hard,
Margaret, what do you think?
I don't like any horse racing at all. I don't like the way they whip them to make them go faster. I just think it's barbaric and I think it should be banned. I agree with the other gentleman, though. Lower the fences and have fewer horses out there because, 40 horses all running at the same time. They all want to get over them fences, so there's going to be animals that are going to be killed or hurt. I would not let my horse into the Grand National because I think it's just for money.
Good morning to you, Tommy.
My point was fairly simple. I just felt that a lot of these horses are bred to race, so if it wasn't for racing, they wouldn't exist. And also people were talking about it's all about money. I don't see what the problem is with making money, because money is what makes the world go round. So I don't see what the issue is with them making money. I would like to see them make it safer, but I don't see why it shouldn't continue.
Let me bring in Mark in Manchester as well.
Hi, Nicky. My point was the nature of the protest. I think since the Grand National fences were modified 10 years or so ago, there have been 9 renewals of the Grand National. And in those 9 years, there have been 17 falls or unseat to the first 2 fences, the most ever. I think it was 3 in 2014, 2015. This year, there were 8 falls or unseat to the first fence alone, including the fatality. I strongly believe that the protest and the nature and the timing of it was a contributing factor to that. I think it caused the horses to become unsettled pre-race because of the delay. Look, everybody has a right to protest peacefully, but I think the untimely attempt to disrupt has done more harm than it did good.
So an array of views there on Nicky Campbell's BBC radio show. Very happy to say journalist, broadcaster in the racing world, Lydia Hislop, is with us on the show again. Lydia, really appreciate the time. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Can I just make a point about Animal Rising to start off?
Please.
They're an animal rights organisation as opposed to an animal welfare organisation. And I do think that is relevant purely in terms of what their end game regarding animals and humans' relationship with them is.
Okay. Do you want to draw the distinction?
Well, I think that an animal welfare group would be something like the RSPCA or World Horse Welfare, who see that there is a place and a purpose for horses within sport, and animal rights, are more connected. If you have a look at the Animal Rising website, they wish to cease the use of animals for sport and entertainment, and also for food. And they have an agenda of rewilding. I say agenda in a non-pejorative sense, a purpose of rewilding and veganism. So my point is that they have wider, long-term, more sweeping objectives, which is in line with being an animal rights organisation as opposed to an animal welfare organisation.
Fair enough point. And I know they've promised further protests of this nature, but not just at racing tracks. They're also planning to go into animal farms, I suppose, and in bids to, I suppose, to use their terminology, rescue animals who've been bred for food. So they're planning more high-profile events over the coming months, that's for sure. For people who didn't catch the coverage over the weekend, how much did ITV show of the protest? How was it covered across that 14-minute delay, Lydia? What did the millions at home see on their televisions?
Well, I have to make a confession that I was working at the same time for a racing TV channel, so I didn't see this live. I've since seen some excerpts from the ITV racing, but they would have seen protesters trying to scale the fences outside the Grand National, using ladders to do so, and attempting to attach themselves to some of the early fences. And they would also have seen members of the police removing those protesters from the track.
Yeah, I mean, it was AP McCoy and Mick Fitzgerald very critical. I did kind of laugh at the phrase attention seekers being used. I mean, yeah, precisely. So, that was the point of the exercise. It seems to have succeeded. I mean, I played, obviously, even the BBC radio discussion, and there are any number of articles which have been written which wouldn't have been otherwise. So in that sense, I would think Animal Rising pretty happy with how the weekend went.
Well, I think they received a lot of publicity going into the race, and I think it was quite one-sided as well, the debate going into the race. And I think that probably engendered a larger impact, and maybe more people that attending to protest than might otherwise have been the case. But in terms of its impact on horse racing, in terms of looking at the race and deciding how to continually reduce the risk factor for participants, that would be a process that would have happened anyway. It happens day in, day out for British horse racing. Fallers and fatalities and the reasons for them are analysed, and it is that data, scientific objective data, is used in order to make changes. For example, fences can be resited as a result. Most recently, Exeter University did some research which has meant that the sort of trimmings, the dressings on fences have been changed from orange to white because research has shown that horses can see those obstacles better and therefore are more likely to jump them better. So as a result of what's happened on Saturday, whether or not a protest had taken place, what the events before, during and after the Grand National would have been routinely analysed, and any improvements to attempt to reduce risk would have been put forward. This is something that Aintree has got a track record of continually doing, in particular since the reviews in 2011 and the changes that were implemented from 2013.
It's worth also making the point for people who didn't see the race. Hill 16 fell at the first circuit, and so it would have been apparent to the millions who maybe only just watched this one race a year and who had just seen the protest. It would have been apparent that something was very badly wrong with Hill 16. So they would have been in no doubt as a viewing public that Hill 16 was in big trouble.
Yes, and I think it is fair to point out that there was a highly unusual number of fallers over the first two fences. I need to correct one of the callers into Nikki Campbell's show. It wasn't 8 departures at the first fence. It was over the first 2 fences. Since the fence modifications in 2013, the most seen is 1 year there were 3 over the combination of those 2 fences. Quite often it can be 2. Sometimes it is 0. So it's certainly there was an unusual number of fallers at the start. And it's a small sample size, but you have to feel that it points to something different having happened.
So that's the weekend. The broader conversation, which has been ongoing for some time, I'm curious for your sense of. It'd be my feeling that the anti-horse racing lobby is, well, if not bigger, certainly louder in the UK and has been for a number of years. And I would have detected, again, it's just almost anecdotal as much as anything, but even on ITV's Cheltenham coverage around the Gold Cup, there was a faller. Ultimately, everything turned out to be well, but the palpable relief I felt, on Ed Chamberlain's behalf and all of the commentary team's behalf, and just a general sense of nervousness on their part, and there were various pieces across the week to show the welfare of horses and how well horses were being looked after. It struck me as a sport, feeling the pressure and feeling under threat, Lydia. So be curious for your sense of where horse racing is in the UK in 2023.
Well, in terms of, relief where injury hasn't taken place, I think, again, that's a day in, day out feeling from people who are lovers of the sport and participants in the sport. You only have to go to a racecourse and see a racing crowd there, the people who have attended, and see them, waiting to hear about news from the horse. I regularly get racing fans contacting me via Twitter if I'm on television broadcasting. They want to know about the welfare of the horse and to hear that the horse has been safe or else has been receiving veterinary care. And obviously there is top flight veterinary care on all race courses, and because of the number of runners at places such as Cheltenham and at Aintree, that number is increased vastly in terms of the veterinary support team. But yes, I think in general, the conversation that Animal Rising say that they wish to have, which is the human relationship with animals, is something that is increasingly at the forefront, I think, of conversations amongst certain areas of our lives. I think you're right in identifying that maybe Britain has been having this conversation and it's been getting louder for a little bit longer than Ireland, but I do think that Ireland will be heading that way as well. I think it's to do with the disassociation with the rural world, the increasing urbanisation potentially, the lack of familiarity with animals having a purpose as opposed to being a pet of some sort. And so I also think that social media, and again, I mean this neutrally, has linked up like-minded people. We've seen that for good and for bad in lots of different areas around the world, and that means that people who feel the same way can more readily connect and speak about racing and speak about animal welfare, animal rights. Just one other thing, by the way, sorry, just to take us back to the national. But again, a caller mentioned lowering the fences. 2 callers did, and rock hard ground. Well, I mean, it wasn't rock hard ground. The ground is irrigated at Aintree to make sure that it is on the softer side of good, and that is a specific intention by Aintree to ensure that it slows the horses down, and that there is an increased risk the quicker the ground is. And for a long period of time now, as long as I can virtually remember, horse racing, particularly jump racing, has looked to take place on ground that is on the soft side, again as a factor in order to reduce the risk of injury. And in terms of lowering the fences, I'm afraid that would actually have the opposite effect. If you imagine yourself running over a series of obstacles, the bigger the obstacle is, the more you would have to slow down in order to negotiate it. And if you actually went quicker, that would be a risk of greater. I mean, the scientific data shows that in terms of horse racing, that would actually be a greater risk to the horse, not a lesser risk.
Mm. So, I mean, listening to you, and it's a very fair outlining of racing's very sincere, I think, efforts to make the sport safer for the horses. There is probably just ultimately a pinch point whereby there's very little more that can be done, and horses will still die. And you got to the nub of the argument perhaps when you said that they are work animals as opposed to pets. Would it be if we were to try and predict the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, would it be your sense that attitudes will continue to veer away from horse racing and these animals being used as work animals, and death is a very unfortunate but real consequence of that, and that racing will find itself increasingly marginalised? Do you see the direction of travel in that sense as pretty much near impossible to turn around?
No, I don't, because I feel that there is a positive message to impart, and I don't feel that this has been done strongly and strategically enough by horse racing. On average, there are about 90,000 runners per year in British horse racing, and 99.8% of them complete without fatality, race without any kind of anything like that happening to them. And these are horses, you heard Sir A.P. McCoy and Mick Fitzgerald talking about the level of care. This is often seen as some kind of cliche, but it's not. These are elite animals, elite athletes, and like humans would, they receive that level of specialist care, specialist exercise. It means that they are particularly well. They are very, very well looked after. And, if we look at animals in the world, and those that are very well cared for and those that are neglected and living miserably, it's not the horses that are bred for the task of racing, who are looked after by the sport, because the sport needs them to be happy, healthy horses, because that's the fundament of the sport. If you compare that, these are horses that are animals that are well cared for. At the other end, it is daily neglect, often through a lack of money or circumstances whereby an animal slips through the net. That is the area that I think that people who are really genuinely interested in animal welfare should be focused upon. And I think there's a lot more that connects people who are concerned about animals and the racing industry than perhaps many of the protesters think, because we in horse racing, you would not want suffering. Life is the important thing. And these 99.8% of runners every year live happy, healthy, well-tended for lives. And that is where I think we should be focused on. And then at the same time, you say it's impossible to reduce risk entirely. Well, there are some things further things that can be done. I mean, that introduction of the white trimmings, as I mentioned, to the hurdles and fences, that was just something that came forward from the the Horse Welfare Board, which is an independently chaired body that look into how risk and can be improved in horse racing, and how horses fare from, inverted commas, cradle to grave. So there's a load of things that they are focused on, one of which is the jump racing risk model. And that has received funding. There's going to be close working with the Royal Veterinary College. That was agreed last December. It's going to be a project that looks into, I'm just checking my facts here. They've already had a look at data from the 1st of January to 2009 to the 31st of December 2018. And by the end of this season, they'll be bringing it up to date. And that will be the analysis, the scientific analysis of this by experts who are used to evaluating epidemiology, the specialists in this area, can bring about areas in which risk is further reduced. And we may be at the point of marginal gains, because you can't remove risk in sport in the same way as you can't remove risk in life. But the sport of horse racing is interested in making those marginal gains all the time that they can.
Where, in your opinion, is the industry when it comes to horses that are no longer competitive and their treatment of those horses?
I think that that can be improved. I think it has been improved a great deal. Traceability has improved quite a bit in recent years. The problem comes when a horse immediately retires and then may move from person to person to person. But I think that is an area that horse racing needs to focus on. I commend it for the work that it has done, the improvements that it's made. I mean, for example, that was something of a myth that racehorses couldn't be, retrained to be eventers or show jumpers or dressage horses or even happy hackers, because they were just too high mettle to be able to do that. Well, that myth has very much been dispelled by retraining of racehorses. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because racehorses are such in good health, are such good athletes and are used to being trained. They're actually really good candidates for a second life, a second career.
And maybe it's not possible to answer, Lydia, but if anyone knows, you would. What percentage of thoroughbred competitive horses do get a good second life, and what percentage either fall into neglect or are simply just taken to the knacker's yard, to be blunt about it?
I don't know. I think that this is an area which can be improved. It has been improved by the microchipping of horses, right. So they are more easily to be traceable. But that is not a foolproof thing at all. So again, I would say that this is an area that the sport needs to concentrate its funding and concentrate its ideas in. And I'm encouraged to do so, because again, in the 5-year strategy put forward by the Horse Welfare Board, A Life Well Lived, it specifically has elements where it talks about traceability, it talks about thoroughbred welfare database, it talks about aftercare and training and education. There are specific 5-year plans to ensure that horse racing improves in these areas, and they are already underway. And I would urge the industry to redouble its efforts in those areas and to make sure that it's appropriately funded.
Yes, because as a final thought, even it's funny, in The Guardian, one of the animal rising spokespeople, Alex Lockwood, wrote a piece, and as you say, they are an animal rights group, so he is every bit as concerned with the 1.2 billion animals which are bred and killed for food purposes as he is with racing. Now, and yet you put that next to the callers we heard on BBC. I don't know what percentage of them go and buy their chicken and their meat in the local shop. I dare say quite a few do, and will continue to do so, because even though in their heart of hearts they probably know the treatment of those animals hasn't always been pristine, they quite like their grub and they're going to keep doing that. Whereas horse racing, it will cost nothing for them for that to be banned, and maybe they feel better about it, and it's so emotive, and they see the horse dying on their television screens. This is the great fight that horse racing has on its hands.
Yeah, and yet there is no comparison with that, is there? I mean,
not in numerical terms, no.
You can't make an argument for the benefit of the animal about the meat industry.
And I'm sorry, I'm not saying there isn't a hypocrisy at the heart of it, but it's just...
No, I know you're not.
It's a reality that I think is there for horse racing, and it will always be there.
I understand fully what you're saying, and I think it's a fair point. But I suppose you just have to point the reason of the argument. I mean, the best thing that the meat industry can say is that the animal involved has a good, albeit short, life. that's the best case scenario, isn't it? And I say that as a meat eater. I'm not saying it critically. I'm just saying it as a fact.
Yeah.
Whereas in horse racing, these are animals who are bred for an athletic task, who are very well cared for and prepared for that task, and the two things are just not comparable. But I take your point in terms of how does it touch people, how easy for them is it to side with one argument or another. I think too easy. But one thing I would say is that Animal Rising have spoken about wanting to ban horse racing. Well, that would immediately put 50,000 thoroughbreds who are currently alive in Britain, 14,000 in training, the rest in stud farms and affiliate premises. That would put them without a purpose, and who would take care of them? And they would fall into that most deleterious fate for all animals, which is that of neglect and living a miserable, painful, slow death, essentially, as opposed to the 99.8% horses who are terrifically well cared for. And also, the other thing that Animal Rising have admitted is that they want to see, one of the solutions to this is that they would want the breed to be stopped. So essentially, they're advocating the extinction of the thoroughbred. And it is fine to have those arguments. I fully support people's right to make the argument, to protest, as long as they're not putting other people at risk. But I do think it's beholden to be honest with people. And I think if the public weigh the facts, the quality of life of these horses against the idea that they would be extinct, I think if more people realise that is the end game of animal rights organisations such as Animal Rising, then I think that the argument would be less popular. So I think it's facts, and I think it's objective scientific improvements, and I think it's removing the emotion from the argument and having a look at what truly benefits the thoroughbred as a whole.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. This